Where'd I put it?
Welcome to the live podcast. All the people that aren't here. One person is waiting. One individual is waiting. It's me, your lovely host, and then Wayne from West Wind Survival. There'll be more people join later, probably, but we're actually on here a little early. So here.
Her gun made her bleed.
Did you paint yourself with it already?
Not exactly. She put one of those hand grips on to show me when I asked what it was. And so we're trying to get it off. We read the manual and I'm trying to poke the little stick in the little thing. And I'm like, that's probably how it's supposed to work, but I can't get it up. Then she tries and she pushes it real hard and it comes off. She pushed. She said a sound.
Okay, yeah, that all went live. I hope y'all enjoyed that. Hello, Walter Davis, person of the Gold Star and Chipper of the Silver Star, who was waiting for somebody else to sound in because he didn't want to get gold. There's the bronze. Let's see who's going to get to be sheriff. That's all we're waiting for is the sheriff to show up. We're on here about 30 minutes early, so it might take a while to fill up the room.
Is this what you were trying to do last night?
What did I do last night?
You sent me a text about going live. I was at the Command Christmas party.
I was trying to get you to go live, man, because BA couldn't go live because he didn't have a babysitter.
Yeah, I figured he had some stuff going on. I will go live after I move, and I'm actually using a computer with a space for it. But right now, I do it all on my phone. So if I go live on the phone, the camera's really crappy, and I can't actually see the chat and respond to people.
Yeah, that's the thing. But I mean, I was like bored to tears. I played Ghost last night. I didn't have anything else to do. I'd already read all. There we go. There's the sheriff. Frank Burns is the sheriff. Yeah. Now we're rocking. We got 5 people in here. No, Bacon come on. So I was like, man, I couldn't talk to anybody. I tried to talk to everybody. I was not going to do it.
I do plan in about 3 or so months getting a good camera and actually setting up to do live stuff.
I like the little camera I got that my son got me.
I'd like to get another DSLR because I used to do photography.
Baby, I didn't take no magazine. Is it still in the base of the gun? That's your daughter.
It's the same.
Oh. Daniel, the missus got a Glock. No. She said she's not scared of you no more. She said she was going to show you how to shoot cardboard like you wouldn't believe.
If you're going to mouth somebody, use yourself to talk, not me.
I am not known internationally as Mrs. Clint Eastwood, so I am perfectly safe. Yeah, one of those $20 Glocks. Well, you had to pay the FFL, right?
Yeah, so actually it cost me $45.
$45. $45 for a Glock 19X. That's not bad.
I think it's funny with people over in England, places like that, they just can't wrap their mind around it.
Yeah, just ain't still blown. His brain's still leaking. He's like, you can't like just give somebody a gun for a raffle. I mean,
the cops give you a gun?
Yep. I mean, people put those things under their Christmas tree for their kids around here.
Yeah.
Hey, Merry Christmas there, Mr. Canadian.
And now I have a reason to yeah. You like my sweater? Christmas sweater?
No, I don't think it's supposed to be a soap opera, but it's going to be close. I really like that Christmas sweater. Oh, hold on. Hey, let me borrow it. Oh, hold on.
Yeah, last night went pretty good. I only had to carry 3 people out to the van.
Oh wow, that's just lightweight drinking there.
Yeah. Most of them had hotel rooms, so it wasn't too bad.
Y'all bear with me. I'm stripping down naked here off camera. Okay. Oh, yo, you take that thermal or that flannel shirt off. It's no chilly in here. I'm good putting on my Christmas sweater. Hold on, now I gotta go fix my hair. Yeah, perfect. Y'all ready for this? I'm gonna turn the camera on. I'm gonna show y'all my new Christmas sweater. Actually, I stole it from my little girl. Y'all ready for this? Dun, dun, dun. Come on, camera. Ready? Oh, y'all can't see me. Dun, dun, dun.
Whoa, turn it off.
I actually was gonna buy you one of these. This is so cool. You can pet your little unicorn. Hey, little unicorn. But
I don't know what he's asking.
who's asking what?
Daniel.
Daniel.
What initial?
Those initials mean she's going to get a permit to carry, which means she can do either conceal or open, but we don't believe in conceal carry. This is America. Screw you, snowflakes.
Oh, hey, Daniel. No, I just got your comment as me and Wes started chatting. I have to back out of all this and close it out if I reply to it.
Anyway, you want your sweater back? It's itchy. Here you go. It's a little small. It's not actually my sweater, guys. Okay, calm down.
Video of eagles.
Unicorn sweater. Thank you.
Would you hand me my...
Oh, hey, Miller, Frank, Chipper,
Thank you.
Mrs. S.
And everybody else. Anyway,
Hey,
but
Miller.
how many we got? We got 11. That's close enough. We'll go ahead and... Wow. Hold on.
Yeah, that's it, Chipper. That's the Rocky.
Oh, yeah.
There's one here in the house.
It's actually... That's... Yeah. She is.
Oh, I'll check that out, Daniel. I'll write that down right now.
Okay. As what did I title this thing? As the WROL turns and stuff. Those of you who caught my hey JC and anybody else that I missed, Frank. Who did I miss?
Mother-in-law.
Think I said hi to mother-in-law. Prepper Madness. Anyway. Anyway, my little daytime live stream that is private now, where I went off on the news and the way our world in general is going and stuff. This is going to be a little more or less emotional version of the same thing, only like less emotional, I hope. Currently, I mean, everybody talks about, prepping for WROL or, in SHTF, how it will be WROL and stuff like that. The rule of law. First, let's explain one to another, or let me try to explain what I understand the rule of law to be. The rule of law is a set of governances which dictate acceptable and unacceptable behavior within a society or a civilization. All right. For there to be rule of law, there have to be laws, and those laws have to apply to each individual the same. There cannot be special protections or privileges or exclusions for anybody for it to be rule of law. Now, if there's special exemptions, and I'm talking about loopholes in the taxes as well as everything else, as well as the purple bathroom placards, all that stuff. It's supposed to be the same for everybody. I propose that we are no longer living in a society governed by the rule of law. I propose that we are now living in a civilization that is systematically removing the rule of law, so that we are being governed by a set of ordinances. And what's that other word? The things the bureaucrats make. Regulations. Governed by regulations and ordinances and stuff which are not actually laws. Like the people going to jail in San Antonio for having a rifle when there is no law against carrying a rifle in the state of Texas. But if you carry one in this particular little town in just outside of San Antonio, they will arrest you. So, anyway, to date, just the other day, we had false bomb threats. There were 2 places that were emailed threatened local to me. There were 24 places in our state capital of Austin that received an email. Over the past several weeks, we've been getting the government updates on our state of preparedness for electrical grid failure due to terrorist threats. I don't know about all that. Anyway, if a terrorist wanted to take the grid down, it would be down. It's not hard to do. The yellow vest protests are spreading across Europe. I found the stories of Belgium, Netherlands, and a hint that they were spreading to Great Britain. Just Aid, is there anything to that? Have you heard anything about that? ALS. And then the Russian military base being built on or semi-permanently stationed off of an island just off of a Venezuelan coast that belongs to Venezuela. And the best part, that which is something West Wind brings into tonight, is gun grabbing. Gun grabbing has gone full blown. And he's got some good stuff on that. So yeah. Who else snuck in while I wasn't looking? Just Aid, you off work? Yeah, Prep for Madness. That's one of the things that, I probably could have made a candidate trip during November of this year, but I would have had to go up there naked because I couldn't carry the firearm. And I'm just like, man, why would I want to go somewhere where they won't allow me to carry a firearm? So, I mean, granted, I guess Canada is not that bad. There's not that much crime out there where there mooses and bears are, I guess. I don't know. I know where there's mooses and bears here, the crime rate's pretty high. So,
It's done now. No worries.
yeah, y'all get the free hemp up there, I guess. Y'all legalize it. Finally get her made legal.
I hope not. I do not partake in that anymore, but I did go in a shop because I was curious about the prices after they legalized it. It's $30 for 1 gram.
I don't know what a gram is. Is that like a joint?
20 used to be 2 grams. Now that it's legalized, it's $30 a gram. All the taxes and fees and everything. It's insane. I'd rather buy it on the street.
And that's what they were trying to do, is just make it to where, they could raise the prices and do the taxes. This is a load of crap. If they have to legalize it, I want them to legalize it for personal use, growth, and if you want to smoke it, you got to grow it. It's not that hard. It's a weed. You put the weed in the dirt and you grow it.
I'm not against legalizing it for medical use for the CDBs and stuff. Just make it a little easier to get access for it through a doctor than it currently was before that.
Yeah, they could make the rules a little bit better, but there's marijuana in a lot of medicines out there.
Like in the veteran community, it's a big problem because they'll prescribe constant Percocets, Vicodins, crazy psychiatric drugs that mess with your head and all this crazy stuff. But the VA and the government won't approve something that's what's the word for it? Non-narcotic and is readily available like CBD oil that could cut a lot of cost, funding, and damage from the addiction programs that they have to run because of what they issue.
Sorry, doing science. I did not know that 9mm was a 38 caliber round. Anyway, 30 something caliber round. My bad. Yeah. The thing about it is if you're legit, there's so many of the people that aren't legit on the wanting the legalized stuff for the the medical for the real reason or whatever. That's the only reason I can't get behind it. And because at least be honest about it. You're not looking most of them aren't looking to make everybody's life better. They want a cup of buzz. They want to roll a doobie, pack a pipe, load a bong. They want to toke it up. They want to stare aimlessly at the wall and go, dude.
Yeah. I don't even have a problem with people that want to do that because the worst thing that really ever happens when you smoke weed is you wake up hungry the next day.
Yeah, but the downside to it is the one hitter in your pocket and stuff. And, you cop a buzz on your way to work, cop a buzz at lunch, and you drop a 384-pound electric motor on your friend. That's why I have a problem with it.
Well, I get that, but I have the same problem with people that drink and do the same thing.
That's why I'll never be a successful contractor, because I have zero tolerance. What you do in your own time is your own time. If you're supposed to be at work 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 8 hours before that.
Oh yeah, and when I was a contractor and we did concrete siding, decking, small remodels, stuff like that, we had that industry is there's some really good people in it and there's good money in it, but there's also a lot of dirt bags in it.
But if you show up to the job site and I mean you're hugging the water jug all day long and you sweat of alcohol, you're gone. And there's no probation, there's no whatever, there's no understanding, there's nothing. Dude, you knew you had to be here today. All you had to do was stop drinking at 10 o'clock. That's all you had to do. Stop drinking and go home.
Oh yeah, I agree 100% with that.
No, I did not. Hello, step one. But
hey BA, hey Matt.
I used to partake a lot. Hello, Matt. Boy, give me this. I got this. Anyway, but even after, or even while I was still partaking, I made a rule that I never partook after midnight because I had to be at work the next day, or if I had to be at work the next day, and I never partook it at work because the guy that dropped the motor on the other guy was me.
Oh wow.
And it was plain and simple. I was stoned. I mean, I was lucky. It was a glancing blow and didn't kill him. But I mean, this dude was a really good friend of mine. Matter of fact, we were we were good friends down there that killed him because and had I not have partaken, he would not have missed 2 weeks worth of work because of me. And I almost planted him, I almost got him. If the pusher hadn't have been as quick, then Dickie would be gone. It's that simple. But yeah, that's zero when we were in Northeast Texas. That's what we did was hire guys that were trying to recover from situations like that, and that's where I set my rules because it worked really good. A bunch of those guys went on to be really successful people, but whatever your probation parole guy said the rules were, mine were stricter. Matter of fact, we had one guy who was on parole, and the other guy was talking about having a beer and stuff, and they were asking me if he wanted to go. I said, y'all don't need to do that to him. And they're like, what? He's blah, blah. I said, he's on parole. He's not allowed to drink. I said, if he goes out drinking with y'all and I know about it, then he's gone. And the guy was like, I freaked him out. I said, dude, you're technically still in prison. The same rules apply. They decided to let you get out of prison and give you some freedom back to see if you will behave if you're unsupervised, basically. And anyway, he didn't go. He's one of the guys. He's when I left that area, he was working for the county. He was making $18.23 an hour.
That's good.
County job, county retirement, He only had like 6 months, 6 or 7 months left to go on his parole. So, yeah, I'm a hard ass. You can ask anybody. I know I seem like a really nice guy on here, and excuse me for the language. Sorry about that. You can ask anybody in my real world whether or not I'm a nice guy, and the answer is going to be no, because I'm really not.
When it comes to work, especially if you're working something that could be dangerous, you have to have that detachment, though.
Let me think. Turn this camera off in case I start bawling. What?
I had to pick
Hey, Sasquatch.
in a parking lot once. When you gotta go, you gotta go. And then after a little bit, he says, "Oh, well, it was
The boss's cup. That's messed up. Anyway, there was a lot of folks that nearly wound up hurt, and there's been a couple of times that I was hurt because somebody was not following the rules about chemicals or whatever, and I've buried people that were near and dear to me because they weren't following the rules about chemicals. So I have zero tolerance for chemicals abuse. Zero. Even on myself. And that's one of the things I think that keeps me from twisting off is zero tolerance. Technically, if I twist off, I've got to quit myself. Fire myself. And there's only one way to fire yourself, and I don't want to do that.
You want to work for yourself.
Well, I mean, from life. So it's getting better, actually. Over the last 2 or 3 years, I can actually think of days that I haven't thought about it. So it gets better.
I hit a point once where I had to quit for like 2 years. I had to quit drinking and everything just to get my head straightened out. After that, I've been fine, but before that, it was a struggle.
Night, Dan, or Matt, where are you going? What you got? Just because you got a baby, you don't think you got to stick around and stuff? Hey, there, Squatch. And that's you got to be careful. I was the only cane my mother ever raised. Or I don't know. I didn't know her when she was a young woman, but in her adult life, I was the only hockey sticks involved in anything. I was the bad kid. I was the bad seed.
What is in that box over there to the left of your screen?
This?
Mm-hmm.
Some rocks that were in mom's stuff.
We should probably get back on subject.
Yeah, we should.
I'm getting way off.
Gun grabs. West Wind, you tell them what that stuff that you found.
Oh, I thought we were going to go over your topics first as your show.
Yeah, that's boom. I mean, all this. Let me segue this a little better. All right. Considering that we have fake bomb threats going all over the place that they're trying to pin on Russia now, good luck with that. Like Russia's going to email the hospital here. That's stupid.
Yeah, they got better things to do than that.
They're the government telling us to prepare and and I know they do it all the time, but they jumped kind of from like 3 days to 3 months. Now it's 6 months, and I'm it's not new, but they're refreshing it. The government is not. There's a bunch of the doomer porn guys out there that are pushing it a little hard. It's not. I mean, we know that we need to be ready, so I don't guess that's a big deal. We've got the yellow vest protests, which they've spread to the Belgians or to Belgium and to the Netherlands. You've got cities now actually paying people money to be poor. That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, then Russia moving into military. The world is coming to a point where we do not have a rule of law. We are no longer governed by rule of law. We are governed by bureaucracies, regulations, and ordinances. Those are not laws. And if we were to wake up and realize that we are supposed to be governed by the rule of law rather than bureaucracy, rather than a socialist communist bureaucracy. Right, Mother? Then we could cause them all kinds of trouble. So therefore, one of the things that they would need to do is get rid of all of our guns. And this can be referenced and, can be indicated, proven by what Westwind here dug up today in his little bit of research. And I'm going to turn it over to Westwind now. Westwind, it's all on you.
Well, about the rule of law, we don't have a nation if we don't have laws, and we don't have a society if we don't abide by those laws that we set down for ourselves. We the Constitution and Bill of Rights is a rule of the land, and for there to be a government and for there to be states for our society, the government has to agree to follow the Constitution. The states all have to agree to follow the Bill of Rights to be a part of the Union. And if the states are not following, the government's not following the Constitution, the state's not following the Bill of Rights, those aren't laws. Those are regulations and policy. And we don't have rule of law if that's happening. And I just all the red flag laws and all the crazy stuff that's going on right now, I decided to do a little research, dig a little deeper than I normally do into the history of the Second Amendment violations on a federal level. And some say that it started in 1939. Some say it started in 86. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it started as far back as the French Indian War, because that's what led to all the crazy taxation, the Stamp Act, and everything that England put on the colonists to pay for the war that they fought for England, that eventually led them to revolt and led the British in to try to take the colonists' weapons and take them by force. So we go all the way back to, pull it up right here, 1775. Up until that point, really up until a few years before that, the colonies were, for the most part, British citizens and allowed to govern. After the Stamp Act, the Tax Act, all the acts and the Tea Party and all that stuff, the British brought in their own special governors and the military to govern the colonies, govern the cities harshly, and force their will with the military upon people, which led up to the first official gun grab in 1775, April 19th and 20th. Lexington and Concord on the 19th, and Williamsburg on the 20th. Lexington and Concord, the Patriots stood together and fought back. In Williamsburg, there were a lot of Tories, people that were sympathetic to England, basically people now who were willing and sympathetic to let the government protect them and regulate their rights away. They were selling their guns and powder back to the British government for the British military to use against them. So Then you fast forward after the war, Bill of Rights, Constitution, all that stuff. We're a country now. The first real federal gun grab that we have on the books is State versus Buzzard in 1842. They were trying to, this was during the buildup of the South leading up to the Civil War. And I believe that they were using Arkansas as a test ground for the whole South to make a gun grab. They had initially, people were carrying concealed pistols, and there was a problem. And this Buzzard was a group of unregulated militia, so just a group of citizens who were having their guns confiscated by the Arkansas government. And at the time, there wasn't Circuit Supreme Court, so it went to the High Supreme Court in Arkansas. And they let the law stand. They ruled that they could, and this was the first federal judge to actually change the definition of the Constitution from regulated, which originally meant well-trained when it was written. He changed the definition to regulated means government control, and a regulated militia means that the government can control the firearms and enact laws against the citizenry. Now, at the time, this stayed in Arkansas, but I believe it was a test bed for the South, for the federal government to try to part of the buildup to the Civil War. Because there was all kinds of civil rights battles and courts battles leading up to the Civil War for 30 years. And then we jump forward to 1939. The United States versus Miller. Now this was about sawed-off shotguns. So, 1934 is the next one. June 26, 1934. Part of Roosevelt's New Deal on crime, following the 1929 Valentine's Day Massacre, because they always like to use a shooting as an excuse, was what they used to push this. Short-barreled shotguns, machine guns, and SBRs fall under ATF regulation and would no longer freely be allowed to buy if you were considered a dangerous person. So then we jump forward to 1939, United States versus Miller. Again, this was about a sawed-off shotgun. And the regulated militia, the wording of the regulated militia indictment came up again. Miller was actually arrested in his home, taken to prison. He appealed it, and he was given the higher court for the appeal, and it went up to the local Supreme Court. And when it went up to the local Supreme Court, the case died because he died in jail. They never released him, and his attorney never showed up because there was no one to pay for the attorney. So the laws stand and nothing was ever overturned. In 1968, the next major case, Jakka, Federal Gun Control Act of 1968. Now this is a big one because this is where we start seeing the forces at will, Darth Vader's force choking the neck of his subordinate. The Gun Control Act of 1968 limits interstate commerce between any unlicensed dealers. And this was following JFK, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King assassinations were used for whatever reason as an excuse for this. So then we have prohibited persons are not allowed to buy weapons, and weapons are no longer allowed to be transported between states federally unless it's a licensed dealer or manufacturer. So this all of a sudden restricts you from the entire nation to your localized state. 1986 was the NRA betrayal. And honestly, I don't care if you support the NRA or not. They betray gun owners, and they have a history of betraying gun owners. And this was one of the first major ones. The Firearms Owners Protection Act. The NRA, quote unquote, worked with the federal government to repeal certain acts of Jakka, but part of their deal was banning unregistered ownership of fully automatic rifles from that day forward. So from that day forward was when a lot of them stopped being manufactured. That was when they started putting tax stamps on it that people can't afford. And now automatic rifles are completely off the table. They've been from 1934 all the way to 1986 constantly attacking automatic rifles, short-barreled shotguns, short-barreled pistols, or short-barreled shotguns and rifles, and now that is completely taken off the table. So we fast forward to 93 to the Brady Act, and this is where since they don't have to go over short-barreled rifles and shotguns and machine guns anymore, now this is where the whole assault weapon stuff started. And they used the attempt on Ronald Reagan's life and the murder of John Lennon as an excuse to push this. And the Brady Act is Brady Act is where all the assault weapons, assault rifle, assault this, assault semi-automatic, because they have to throw that automatic word in there. That's where all that came from. And that's basically what started the background checks. Then we go to 94. So now we have, at this point, completely lost short-barreled rifles and shotguns reasonably. Completely lost automatic weapons. The tax stamps are unaffordable, so you've been restricted from the federal aspect to your state. Now you've been restricted on what you can buy and own. And we've been restricted to background checks. At 94 was when the assault weapons ban went through, following the Stockton schoolyard shooting, Ruby Ridge, and what was the other one? The Waco incident. And from 94 to 2004, semi-automatics and high-capacity magazines were banned leading up to this. So now we have completely lost just about all of our gun rights. Now we're down to bolt actions and revolvers for the most part. And I remember when this went through. And then in 2000, they knew the sunset was coming up in a few years. So the Clinton administration was actually working with Smith & Wesson to develop technology for smart guns. That's where the whole smart gun came from. Was that initially it was Smith & Wesson that threw the gun owners under the bus. And we all know that was abysmal failure, thank God. 2004, the sunset went through on the assault weapons ban and the firearms market exploded. 2007, NICS improved more restrictions in the system. 2007, Parker versus District of Columbia, court strikes down gun control law for the first time, which they didn't really do anything other than acknowledge that somebody has a right to defend themselves in their own home. So nothing was really won or lost with that. 2008, Heller versus DC, the 5-4 vote to self-defense in the home was finally finalized and approved, but it was kind of a loss because when it went through, the only thing people were allowed to own was revolvers. And then to piggyback off of that is the second time publicly that a federal court judge from all the way back from 1842, Scalia chimed in on this, the 2008 Heller versus CC. He was the one that changed the language again, that when they were trying to change it so DC could still take people's guns and not allow them to have them, and they worked it down, or they could only have revolvers and they had to be locked up in their own home. Scalia commented that because of all the other court cases in the past and the revolution, when they had muskets and rifles, the quote was, the laws have to focus on the guns that are common use at the time. So now he changes the language again, the second time publicly that a federal court judge has done this. And since then, they have kind of gone away from too many federal restrictions, and they've been allowing cities and states to create their own policy and their own regulation outside of the Constitution and outside of the Bill of Rights, and slowly restrict our rights further from the state level to the city and the county level, in a lot of cases down to people's own homes. So we've gone from complete and utter freedom over the entire nation over the course of this time from, what I say, 1842 to almost 2019 now. In a lot of places, you have no control over what you own in your own home. So I'll leave that open for anything you have to say about it, Wes. I didn't cover all the state and local stuff. This is just federal stuff, the major ones going down.
So basically, they've been trying to take our guns away for a really, really, really long time then.
And they have almost succeeded. And with states and cities making up their own laws and making up their own policy as they go along, because of all the federal laws, they have given them that leeway and not chosen to enforce the federal law and the Bill of Rights on the states and the cities.
So basically, we're rolling right now. We're in world without rule of law because we're allowing them to make rather than legislate, we're allowing them to make regulations.
Some would say since 2001. I say since 94 we've been in a world without rule of law.
Which can only get more and more dangerous. Yes. Say hello to Justate over here. Hey, Justate, what's up? Our brother from Great Britain.
Hey, Justate.
You're muted, by the way.
He's at work.
He's at work.
Yeah. I'm at the work now. Yeah, but everyone's gone home now. I'm just waiting for my lift.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe if you're still open, I was going to have you give me a pint and drink it for me.
Well, I've already had a can of American Pale Ale. Actually, funnily enough.
American Pale Ale. What is that? Budweiser?
Hang on. It's called. Oh, where the bugger is it? Oh, it is. It's called Pathmaker Pale Ale USA.
Pathmaker?
Black Sheep.
I don't know. I don't think you can get that over here.
All right. Well, it says product of the USA on it. So.
Did you say Pabst?
It's called Pathmaker Pale Ale. And it comes in a 330ml can and it's 5.5, and it says it's brewed here, but it's a produce of America.
Maybe so. Yeah. I'll send you some Lone Star, man. If I get that in the mail or whatever, that would be cool. That's crappy beer, but what the heck? It's brewed in Texas. I'm eating
that then.
I stole a strawberry Pop-Tart from my daughter. I'm eating it. In case y'all want to know why it sounds like I'm chewing.
But the final piece that I was getting to that was that after all that, then we have the UN treaty that was signed, and what's clear is who benefits from it every time and who loses every time.
Those who want to have control over the citizenry gain. Everybody else, the citizenry, loses. There you go. But
the picking winners and losers on who we're going to enforce the law to and who we're going to let riot in the cities and burn stuff down, or who are going to arrest. Even I have friends that are cops who I've worked with that work in major cities, and I won't say who they are, what police departments, but they have orders not to arrest, or the restrictions to actually put people in jail and arrest them. They can pick up drug dealers, they can pick up criminals. They're not allowed to chase people if they get in a car and run from them. They can pick up drug dealers and criminals, but they have to take them to a hospital and they have to be watched, and then they take them to jail. And it's city policy by the city council that they're not going to prosecute these people. So they will pick up the same people over and over again. They're causing 90% of the crime in the city, and the city prosecutors just let them go like 2 days later, and they're out on the street again. And people always want to say the problem's the cops. Well, there's a lot of good cops out there, and there's some bad ones. But the problems is the court system in the city. They're picking and choosing winners and losers, versus they know if they catch a working class guy that messed up, he has a job and he's got the money to pay through the court system.
Yep. This is going to be a weird reference, whatever. And I'm going to, I'll leave this live stream up. I'm going to find the video and I'm going to link it down in the description. I may try to do it on here and put it over in the chat. There's a video about, it's a Star Wars video, okay, about what life was actually like on Coruscant, the capital planet of the Republic, underneath what you see in the movie, what it was down like on the lower levels, because society just kept building on top and on top and on top. And, you know, around here we call it donutting a town. Whenever a town wants to build new houses or new shopping centers or whatever, they go to the outside edge of town and they build, and then the center of the town dies. And you wind up with this donut, okay? You've got all this stuff happening on the outside of town, and then right in the middle of town, you've got this dead zone, which nobody wants to do business at, nobody wants to live, blah, 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 because, well, you can't get there, there's no parking, people die, people get murdered, raped, stolen. You can't live there because somebody's always kicking your front door in, stealing your stuff, that kind of stuff. So you wind up with a donutted city. Lubbock is donutting really bad. Abilene right now is not. But I know several smaller towns that did.
That's not true, Mass.
What's that?
Sorry, I was telling Mass that's not true.
Oh, yeah.
The
I don't think
conspiracy.
they'll ever be able to get the United States Armed Forces to turn their weapons on the populace. They will have to do it through legislation and ordinances and regulation. They could use, okay, they can take over the police, which I do not believe that we're in a police state right now. I'm sorry, I know there's people out in the chat that are going to hate me for that. I don't believe that the police are in the pocket of the government and they all signed on to help take over the world and just run everybody's life and this, that, and everything else. I don't believe that for a minute. Are the powers that be, the cabal, are the cabal, that's the word for the day they're running now. Are they trying to get police in there and police chiefs and sheriffs and everything in positions of authority so that they can use the police force to do that? Now, the police have to sign an oath saying that they're going to uphold the laws of that city, county, state, whatever. So if the law says you can't have that gun, the cop either has to go get that gun from you, arrest you and put you in jail, or quit his job. or get fired. Because I mean that's what they sign on for. It's to follow the law. They do not make the laws. They enforce the laws. They are law enforcement officers.
The problem now is if they don't enforce the crooked laws, the people who investigate the police investigators, so the guys that are good cops, they get invested by state guys who come in and will take them and throw them in jail and put their family on the street. And it's kind of a veiled threat. So they get stuck in a system that they really can't get out of. I know a couple people, for example, in this state, if a criminal breaks into your home in a certain major city in Washington and they shoot your wife and take you hostage and your wife's bleeding out on the floor, the cop comes in and sees the situation. Before the cop can actually draw and fire on the criminal, he has to try to talk the criminal down, even though it has been already past that point by the time he has gotten there. And if he does shoot the criminal, he then has to render first aid and try to save the criminal so he can go to court and defend himself before he helps your family, or he will be investigated and thrown in jail himself.
Yeah, and see that's regulation, not legislation. And
Yeah.
but they're trying to they do these regulations, and it's like, oh, that's a good idea. Now let's make it a law. And then you got people like, oh, that cop killed that guy, and he was just trying to get Christmas presents for his baby. He shot the family that bought the Christmas presents so he could get the Christmas presents for his baby. Get the story straight, CNN. That's actually, I can't find the deal, but that happened in 2008. The cop lost his job. The guy went in, was stealing the presents. Dad caught him, confronted him. The guy turned around, beat the man down. The wife heard the commotion, come down, put her in the hospital. He killed the man, put the woman in the hospital, and was leaving because the mom had called 911, was leaving, and the cops stopped him. And then the cops got in trouble because they stopped the guy. The guy just beat a man to death in his own home with a Christmas present. That's what the left is pushing all, and see, I done went off and got all mad and stuff. The left is pushing all these things down our throat, saying that it's for the betterment. It's to make us all equal, to make it so everybody gets treated better, to make it so the system can't abuse you. The system is supposed to be in place to freaking protect us, not control us. The laws have to be there. If we need to build more prisons, we need to build more prisons. Makes more jobs. Now, do we need to make new laws for the guys running those prisons? Yeah, if you abuse a prisoner, you can go to jail. You can be in there with the prisoners. But do we need more prisons? Yeah, we do. We do not have nearly enough prisons because we're having to let guys out. Where are y'all going?
Dallas.
Again?
Yeah. I have an eye appointment tomorrow. I have a party. All his friends.
You have an eye appointment in Dallas?
Figured I might as well make one up there because we're going to be there. But yeah.
Okay. Hold on.
All right, fine, bye. Y'all have a nice trip, whatever. I'll try to not, lose your dog while you're gone.
Come on.
Oh, okay. You can lose her while you're there. Anyway, apparently my daughter is going on time. So, yeah. Anyway, what was our ranting about?
The system being there to protect us.
Thank you. I was going to try to let that go. The system is supposed to be there to protect us, not control us, okay? We have to have The laws, you have to write a law, say, it is against the law to steal eggs. That's simple. Here's the rest of the law. If you steal an egg, you have to do 30 days in jail and pay the guy for a dozen eggs. You have to restitute that man plus any property damage or anything you did while you were committing the crime. Okay? So there's a law. Okay. Now, if you steal that man's egg or woman's egg or whatever, and you break his chicken house and you beat him up because his chickens laid the wrong color egg or whatever. I mean, you're like, oh, I wanted to steal white eggs, and these are grade A medium browns. You know, whatever the reason is, then, okay, you have to go to jail now because it was an aggravated crime. You were committing one crime, and then you chose to commit a secondary crime while you were doing it. Boom, boom, boom. You spend more time in jail. It costs you more money. You have to pay all the hospital bills and stuff for the guy you committed the crime on. Crime has to become unprofitable. After, say you get 30 days in jail, this guy's got $15,000 worth of hospital bills, and he had to build a new chicken house because he kicked the door in, and he wanted a new chicken house. But hey, you shouldn't kick the door in if you didn't want to buy him a new chicken house. Fair's fair. So now, even after you do your 30 days for stealing the chicken egg, guess what? They're going to garnish your wages until you pay for that man's new chicken house and all his hospital bills. Guess what? It's not worth doing the crime anymore. Those are laws. Those are laws that design the guy building or growing the chickens and raising the eggs. Okay. Now, let's say the guy stole the egg because the guy couldn't afford to buy an egg. There's no reason a dozen eggs should be $12 a dozen. If you're paying $8 a dozen for organic, free-range chicken eggs for 6 eggs, $8 for 6 eggs at the grocery store, I need you to walk into the mirror, look yourself in the eye, and slap your own face. They're chicken eggs. They come out of a chicken's butt. They're an egg. Okay? That's robbery. The store charging $8 for 6 eggs needs to be thrown in jail because that's ridiculous. But let's say that the guy was gouging the market. There should be legislation to prevent him from doing so. It should have both civil and criminal penalties. The guy should have to do time in jail for gouging the market on eggs, for charging $12 an egg when it should be 12 eggs for $1. Those are laws designed to protect society. When you start making a law saying, oh, you can't say this word or that word, or you can't go here, you can't go there, you have to treat this person this way and this person another way, and you have to let this person get away with this because they're this. Those are no longer designed to protect the society and the people living within the society. Those are laws designed to protect a specific, tiny, little bitty part of people living within the society. They're designed to make it impossible for everybody else to live a happy and cohesive life, thereby increasing tensions, increasing strife, needing more and more laws to the point where you have less and less freedoms. Our freedoms are God-given. They're not given by the government. Our freedoms are something that we can abuse, and if we choose to abuse them, there should be penalties. Should there be laws, if you will, that state how we can or how we should behave in our freedoms? I am way big liberal type kind of guy. If you want to like wear dresses and stuff like that, if you want to identify as a woman, that's fine. I really don't care. If you're gay, I really don't care. If you're a Democrat, I really don't care. If you want to get stoned, I really don't care. But you have to realize that That's your life. It's not mine. You can't force that down my throat. Now, I threw the getting high thing in there. And we already said I've done contradicted myself, so I got to clear this up. Rules against the use of drugs are necessary. We cannot allow the legalization of narcotics. That cannot happen. These narcotics were not made illegal to make big pharmaceuticals money. They were made illegal because entire generations of immigrants were dying because of overdose, abuse, theft, murder to support drug addiction. Opiates will destroy your life. Go to San Francisco. Take a look.
Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle.
They get up at 4 a.m. to sweep all the needles out of the streets and the gutters and the sidewalks. So when people get up at 5:36 and leave for work, they're not stepping on dirty needles.
And Steve, I actually have that sign out there. It says eggs for sale, but only to smoke transsexual Democrats. That would be funny, though. Wonder how long that would take to get me sued.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Oh, grouchy.
You never did pay Daniel.
It was taxes. It was toenail taxes. That payment had to be made, and payment was Daniel's foot. Carl, what's all the baby hands for, Carl?
Love you.
Love you too.
Bye,
Camera's off.
everybody. Oh,
Carl, let me see
my
your
pet unicorn says bye.
All right, y'all be careful, seriously. Okay, her pet unicorn vibrates.
I have a neck massage one too.
What?
She has a stuffed unicorn that when you turn it on, it's butt shakes.
Charges $1 million per foot.
To be a transsexual, you do not have to have a special law. I'm sorry. I hung in Lubbock. I partied in Lubbock when I was younger. We didn't care. We didn't beat them up. We didn't ridicule them. They sat at the table with us. They got bent with us. They got smoked with us. I don't know where this all, they're getting whatever. Now, did some of them have a lot of trouble getting a job and stuff like that? Yeah, but I mean, you can't dictate that somebody has to hire somebody to work at their place of business that lives completely outside of that business's religious beliefs. I mean, that's wrong. You can't dictate that. If the person wants to go to work in that line of work, then they should go find a place where it's okay.
Well, that's just one more thing that has been taken out of context and been regulated away. If you read the original letter from Thomas Jefferson about the separation of church and state, it was during the time of Pennsylvania. I believe it was the Quakers. I believe it was the Quakers in Pennsylvania. Basically, it was a state religion. You had to belong to that religion, or you had special taxes and you were punished and you couldn't work anywhere. And Thomas Jefferson wrote the letter of church and state. And it wasn't about, oh, you can't say Jesus in a public school, or you can't say Yahweh, or you can't do this. You can't show a manger. It was saying that the state cannot sponsor a religion.
Yeah, they abuse everything. That's like the naturally born was to protect the vote. It was put in there to protect the voting rights of freed black slaves. that were born in the United States, and it's been super abused. It wasn't anybody born on the on the property. Anybody born on U.S. soil is now a citizen. That's not what it was supposed to be.
Oh,
It
you
was
step
telling
over.
the Democratic Party that they could not deny the vote to people who were born here that are United States citizens. But go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, saying, I mean, you step over the imaginary line, crap out a baby, and all of a sudden you're a citizen now.
Yeah, that's just doesn't work. But yeah, Steve, on the TMI or whatever, we really back in the early 80s, you didn't judge people. You didn't. I mean, we didn't actually. I didn't like room up with anybody like that or anything like that. But you just, we were raised in this. I come up in church where you were not supposed to judge somebody else. You didn't. You did not condemn the sinner for the sinner. You could. I mean, it was spiritually wrong to condemn the sinner. That wasn't our place. Now we could dislike the sin and not want it in our life, but we weren't supposed to like hold the sin against the person. There were churches out there that taught that you couldn't even. I mean, my ex-father-in-law would not even sit down to dinner. He would not even have a meal with somebody he suspected of being a homosexual because he thought it was a biblical thing. Good night, Daniel.
Hey, Daniel.
But this derailed.
You were talking about sitting down.
Oh, I didn't realize you still knew his name. Anyway, yeah. But it's completely misquoted in the Bible with an immoral. It's anybody, any sinner in its Old Testament deal. It's like anybody that, if a guy's having an affair on his wife, you can't have dinner with him. You're supposed to tell him, why, dude, I can't be having you over at my house anymore. You're cheating on your old lady. You're supposed to let him know that you're not cool with what he's doing. That's what that Bible verse says. It wasn't specifically homosexual. None of the stuff that's counted as an abomination is specifically homosexual in the Bible.
That comes down to being a good friend, too. Holding your buddies accountable, like, hey, you need to fix your problem, man.
Yeah, that's what the verse was about. Dude, you got to get this right. I mean, and that's our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, early Bill of Rights, was based on biblical principle. It was done in such a way that a person's faith in the Judeo-Christian God would govern their behavior, would allow them to self-govern themselves because, okay, the laws that we're saying, the things we're saying you can and can't do are in here, are in this book. We're just putting them as laws up here, okay? We're putting them, making them federal and state laws. So we know what we can and can't do. So there's something we can do instead of Billy Bob having to shoot Jamie Sue over here because Jamie Sue does something Billy Bob knows as good as the rules. He can just call the constable and the constable can handle it. That's not where we're at anymore. We're not living by rules based on the Constitution. We are so overregulated in stuff. I agree that there should be times when an individual should lose the right to own a firearm or to purchase a firearm. If you have used a firearm in a crime, you should not be allowed to own one. If
In an intentional, premeditated crime,
intentional, premeditated crime.
not just because someone went to jail for defending their home or something, you know.
And if you're the kind of guy that likes to go around and knife people and baseball bat people and stuff like that, if it's been proven in court, then yeah. Now, I'm not saying that because you get wrote up for harassing your ex-wife or something, that you should, that you can't buy a gun because you called her when she was on a date and it ticked her off, so she called and filed harassment charges or whatever. I'm just making stuff up. But there's so many crappy little regulations out there making it more and more difficult to live by our rule of law. Our rule of law is based on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Those are our laws. Supposed to be. If it's not backed up or supported by the Constitution, then there's not supposed to be a regulation or a law governing it. Why is there? That's what I'm saying. We're not in the rule of law anymore. We are without rule of law. And we need to take back our rule of law. And one of the things is we need to make it, we need to stop letting lawyers write the law. Laws don't need to be written in a language that only lawyers understand.
Exactly. Lawyers are not accountable to the people. They're completely outside of that whole process.
I don't think that the client attorney privilege, I don't think should exist. I don't see how that's, if a lawyer knows that his client is guilty of murdering 47 little old ladies in a nursing home, then it should be his job to get him the best deal, the best sentencing or whatever that he can, but to actually use loopholes in the law and just miles and miles of lawsuits and this, that, and everything else, twisting civil rights around to where he can get the guy off for like running over a cat in the front parking lot when he was leaving the justice for the 47 people that got killed in the nursing home just undone because some cop, spilt coffee on a piece of paper or whatever. I'm making stuff up again.
Well, I think there should be client and attorney privilege. You can't have a fair trial without that. But yeah, the loophole thing and activist judges is a problem.
Well, see, I don't know how to fix it, but there's got to be some way to quit letting murderers and rapists and drug dealers and stuff get off because of they didn't get there's got to be some way to make it easier for the cop to prove you did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One thing is there needs to be, and this feeds right back into it, and this may be part of why they're doing things the way they're doing it. There's not enough police.
There's enough cops, but you got too many politicians in the system that are not allowing them to do their jobs properly.
Yeah, there's that.
Like the case with the people that I know is that I don't know why they do it. I wouldn't be able to do it. And I'm surprised, especially in Seattle, why those guys just don't walk out with the new law that passed or the new initiative that went through. I would.
My
I
niece,
would walk out en masse.
my niece is. That's what she's going to be. She's going to be a cop. And I don't know how she's going to do it.
I used to be all for it. I took all the tests and I passed, and I had my veterans preference. But the last few years with everything going on, I can't consciously do it and live with myself,
Yeah,
knowing
Steve,
that I
a chunk of the founding fathers were lawyers, Steve, but they weren't. And they might have been some of the ones that put the loopholes in there that's making it so much fun for us today, you reckon?
well, they weren't big on loopholes. Like John Adams, he defended the British at the Boston Massacre for the fact that he needed to prove that we have fair trials and everybody deserves representation. Because without that, then we have basically a dictatorship.
And that's the problem with the cops, Steve, is like right now, it's not their job to prove you did it, but the least little thing they do wrong can make it impossible for the guy whose job it is to prove it, impossible for him to, because the evidence gets thrown out.
Well, kind of like the two people that just got away with murder here.
Murder. I mean, 27 times. You stabbed that boy 27 times in the face.
But the police screwed up. So you murdered those people, those two guys, threw them under your house and hid their bodies and waited 5 hours to report a break-in, and you get to walk scot-free.
Scot-free?
Because they missed a step in the investigation.
See, and
that one.
That right there is not a problem with the police. If the police mess up, then they should be dealt with in the appropriate manner, but it should not throw the entire case out for what that guy did.
It did, though. They literally, and the two people that killed the other two people, they were friends. Because it was, these guys stepped into a world they should have known better than. They were raised, both sets of people were raised better than that. They chose to get in the world of methamphetamine and marijuana. And
yeah, I mean, they screwed up, but they didn't deserve to die.
They didn't deserve to get stabbed in the face 27 times, or 23, or whatever it was.
20-something.
20-something times.
And shot.
And shot. I forgot about the shot. I'm going to show you a box. Oh. Yeah. And what the other girl, she got mad at the old boy, went, got a gun, come back, mouthed off until he took a step towards her, pulled the gun out, popped him twice in the chest, got away with it, got away scot-free too.
Yeah, you want to commit murder, just come to our
Yeah, just come to our county. You ain't going to jail for it. Hold on. Daniel's already gone, so he should have waited because I'm going to do an unboxing. There'll be a more fancier one on the whatever, but I want to do this real quick. This is driving me nuts because this is so cool, I think. Come on, camera. Wake up. There we go. Ooh, my hair's pretty.
Oh, they won't do that, Steve, not unless the prosecutor decides it's important for their political career.
I'm sorry to interrupt. The transport's here, so we'll see you in a bit.
All right.
See you, Justin.
Cool, man.
Hey, Justin, before you turn off your camera, look at this. Ooh. The police give these away. I'll tell you some more. Yeah. No bullets. No bulletes. No cartridges in the clip. As a clip purpose.
Oh, no way. That's so cool.
Isn't it cool? I mean, you don't buy around. Okay, go to your transport. I got the missus getting on to me now. So sweet. But yeah. It comes with not one but 3 bullet diapers. This has not got no bullets in it. I can put it back in there. And these little thingies that, I don't know, you put them on there and make the gun bigger. I don't know why you would do that, but you can. And all the paperwork. A full box of 50 rounds will not fill up all the magazines for this gun. So, yeah. I forgot. I got in trouble for not loading this one. I'm going to load it. I got something to do now while I talk to y'all. Night, Normal. Have a good one. This is me putting, but anyway, takes 51 bullets to fill up all the magazines, and, well, I only got 50. I got this little thing that I'm trying to figure out how it works. It's like you do, you push this down, you put the bullet, and then you put, when you throw the bullet at yourself, right in your face. Right in your face. I don't know. It's just easier to do it like that. I can do it like this. Well, I say that, now I'm going to, like, blow it. Oh. See, I'm going to put the thing back on there because now I can't. I loaded all the other ones just regular because I couldn't figure out how to make this stupid thing work. We're going to go get the barrel dirty tomorrow, I hope.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing tomorrow.
Did y'all talk about all the email?
The email thingies, just who all got an email threat local to them? A bomb threat or whatever. We got, like I say, we had 2 here, and then 24 in Austin, and others spread around the state. I just didn't know if anybody was aware of any in their specific area specific to them. Maybe this gun is live now. There's not one in the chamber.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like, I've seen a lot of stuff about Russia and China, but that doesn't sound like something they'd waste their time with.
That's the most retarded thing ever.
I mean, that kind of goes along with the Democrats sending bombs to themselves.
Man, I'm not buying the bombs were mailed, man. They shouldn't have made it out of the first postal deal. And if they were mailed, there needs to be a lot of help wanted ads in front of the post offices where they were mailed through. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that whole thing was hokey.
I don't know.
I saw somebody took a picture of that dude's LinkedIn page before it got taken down. And it definitely didn't go along with the narrative.
Yeah, what the squad said, I mean, I don't see them threatening to blow something up. They're going to blow something up, they're just going to blow it up.
Well, and they were saying that it was the similar thing where the guy sends you an email saying that some rich person just died and they want to send you the money. It was the same kind of format.
Yeah.
And bad English.
Because they're asking for Bitcoin. And it was somebody trying to do some ransomware, you know. How many people out there didn't say anything? They just sent the Bitcoin, you know. I mean, how much money did the dude make?
Yeah, Nigerian.
Yeah.
This just doesn't seem like something a government would waste their time with. They have so many better resources and stuff to deal with.
Just CNN's getting desperate. Nothing's going on that we can lie about. Let's make something. Let's blow something completely out of proportion. You know how to tell that mainstream media anchor is lying?
Anytime they open their mouth.
There you go. Their lips are moving. I'm fairly sure that's not even their real names. Almost 100% that that's not even their real names. They probably made them up. The name's probably Betty Sue and Johnny Boy or something. It'd be funny if they weren't even like real people and they were actually AI, because you never see them from below the desk or whatever. They're just sitting there going.
I used to do that, Steve.
Stick up their butt. I check for myself in there all the time. They just don't know me very well. I remember they had the FBI's most wanted, even at the post office in the building where I grew up. Which, you talk about security back then, you walked in and literally there was a counter and all the mail was in buckets back there, and you put a stamp on it and you hand it to the lady, and she put it in this box going to this part and this part. I mean, it was like all handled by, I mean, they didn't scan crap. Yeah. See, back then you could mail some cool stuff. Today you can't mail anything because people were mailing stuff. So, I mean, that Unabomber ended that mailing anything like that through the post office. And yeah, unwanted poster. Yeah, I got an unwanted poster one time. I actually have had 2 unwanted posters. There were like a lot of pages. Unwanted, spelled D-I-V-O. I'm sorry. What else y'all want to talk about since we decided that Just State had to like bounce all the way out.
He's transporting.
He's transporting. Oh, that's right. He's in the train. He's in the train. See how long it takes him to get home. Does anybody in the side chat concur with do you concur with me, Westwind, that we're no longer living under a rule of law?
Yeah, that's a conversation I've had with myself for a number of years. And without rule of law, it doesn't mean that there has to be chaos in the streets and buildings falling down. The government and states are operating on their own accord, manipulating and operating off of a policy rather than what is the law of the land, and that in itself is without rule of law.
Yeah, and the rule of law has to be dictated by whatever the land, if you will, decided that their rule of law was going to be, and we're definitely not there anymore. Well, I don't think we are.
I think 94 was a final nail in the coffin for that when they when they passed the first actual assault weapons ban.
Well, I used to think Wyatt Earp was this total bad booty dude, cool guy or whatever. No, he was a freaking gun grabbing Democrat, man.
Well, back then, you get like the little cities and towns. They were like, they could pretty much do what they wanted because it was a good old boy club. There wasn't really anybody out there enforcing the federal laws. But now they willingly, knowingly create policy against the existing law.
Yeah. And that's the problem in the good old boy thing, which is actually poison for anything. If there's good old boyness in it, it's corrupt. It's going to be run unethically. Okay, and that's how so many of the early, the guys in the early 1900s got in office. In higher offices, the good old boyed their way up from the bottom.
Yeah, and you got the Trojan horses out there too that people diehard support. Like Ruger used to be one until Bill Ruger died. They've turned the company around, done good things. But Smith and Wesson, the NRA is one of our biggest enemies, and people support them with this diehard attitude. And the NRA is full of thuds. I hate thuds. They're people that are like, oh, well, I got my bolt action and my 38 revolver. That's all I need. So nobody else needs a semi-auto. Nobody else needs an auto shotgun. Those people do more damage than anyone else because they divide the firearms community instead of standing together. They're dividing the community on stupid issues.
Night, Steve. Yeah, and I don't know.
They're worse than Democrats because they know better.
And they don't really think that. They just don't want people to well, man, I've got this pistol and this gun. That's all I need. I can't afford anything else anyway, so I'm gonna make it harder for other people who can't afford it to get it. They're actually just a lot of them just doing it because their booties hurt.
Yeah.
That's messed up, but it's true.
But it's I don't care if somebody like I can't afford a tax stamp and all the craziness to own a machine gun and allow the government in my home. That doesn't mean I don't think somebody else should if they can't afford to. Hell, I don't care if someone wants to own an artillery tank. If they got the acres of land and the money to shoot it,
Yeah. But honestly, all you can do is shoot your own land. So, why would you blow up your own dirt? I guess maybe if you had like rocks or something, it would work. Use your artillery shell to pulverize, turn rocks into gravel and then open a gravel pit. That makes sense. Okay, yeah, justify.
It's those people along with the NRA. NRA is just a wolf in sheep's clothing. They will gladly take your money. They'll take your $20 a year or whatever it is for a membership. Produce magazines, produce crap, constantly send you shit every fucking week in the mail. Sorry, I'm swearing, but it pisses me off. When I was a member of the NRA, I like Gun Owners of America because they actually draw a line in the sand and they say this is what we're standing up for. The NRA will take your money and lie to your face, and they will waste your money constantly sending you propaganda telling you that you have to donate more. It's never good enough how much you donate or how much time you donate or what you do. Constantly send you crap and waste your money that you paid them. They're wasting more money than what you gave them to send you crap constantly every week. And then they'll constantly remind you that you have to support them. They should be supporting you after you pay them. After all, that's what you paid them to do.
Yeah.
You didn't pay them to go to Congress and cut backroom deals and underhanded deals to give up one gun right to get some minute win somewhere else that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Supposed to fight it all the way. Our right to keep and bear arms is not so we can go hunting and to provide for our family. Our right to keep and bear arms is so that we can defend ourselves against any threat, both foreign and domestic. We have the right. Is to defend against tyranny, oppression, infringement of our rights. That's why we have the right. That's why it was put in the Constitution, and that's
exactly, Chipper. They just want your money. And these these red flag laws and the stuff that's going on in New Jersey with them threatening to go into people's homes and take their guns if they don't register. If gun owners would stand together, the states and the cities wouldn't be able to do a damn thing. You don't have to go take over the Capitol. You just have to stand together and draw that line in the sand and say, we're not taking it. That's what happened down in New Mexico at the Bundy Ranch with BLM trying to push them off the land and take over their water rights. The gun owners and the veterans stood together and went down there and supported them, and they weren't able to do anything.
Yeah. Hey, Walter, congrats on the kiddos. I read that right. SM strike one. Okay, we don't do that stuff out in the chat. All right, you know, stick around, watch your stuff. Or there you go. Anyway, and hey, you are kind of nuts, but you know, unless he's like, that ain't your son or something, is it? I was wondering.
Hey, HTP.
What I miss, Scratchy?
That's one thing. It's like I stopped talking to people over if they get all NRA this, NRA that. If you support the NRA, you're the enemy.
Hey, it's what do you call it? Not necessarily an enemy, but you're like giving money to Sweden. We don't need a neutral party. You know, we don't need a neutral country. We need somebody on our side. I don't give the United Way either. That's such a ripoff. I mean, yeah, it's a big thing or whatever, but dude, like $1 out of $100 goes to the actual people they're supposed to be helping. The rest of it's all to run the place.
Yeah, I do not give money to a single. There's only one charity I give money to now because it's ran. The guy doesn't get federal dollars, and he's a former homeless vet. The dysfunctional veterans, the DV Foundation. They own a private farm where they pull vets off the street. They get them rehabilitated. They get them in jobs, and they go out and they take donations. They give clothing, food, socks, water, all stuff to vets. But I have given money United Way. I've given money to Red Cross, and I found out how they wasted it. And then I gave a lot of money to Wounded Warrior for a lot of years, and then found out about the owner embezzling it, screwing people over and abandoning them. After they fly them out to these events, they fly veterans and their families out to these events in hotels and cities, and they say, oh, we're going to supply you with tickets, round trip. You get the hotel for the weekend, you get to spend time with your family. They film the event like it's a big deal, and then when they're done filming, they abandon the families and the veterans in the hotels, and like everything that they promised was a lie, and the owner embezzles the money that people donate. The Wounded Warrior was such a crock of crap, and I donated to them for years.
It's yeah. No, that I just don't. Why do we need big organized charities? I mean, if we can give money to a big charity that's going to spend all its money on like itself, why can't we just like do stuff local and stuff? I mean,
well, around 9/11, people figured out all the money that was being donated to United Way and Red Cross. They figured out that they could basically start a corporate with no money by declaring it a nonprofit and stealing the donations. So nonprofit has actually become big business and almost as big as a corporate, and they just pay themselves for the most part. It's actually a business model and a business plan now. How to start a business with very little capital.
Yeah, the big nonprofit deals or whatever. Yeah, and they're going to mess it up for the real nonprofits. It's like there's a lot of the big mega churches out there. They operate under the nonprofit thing. Dude, it's like $30 for your paperback. I mean, how's that nonprofit? Oh, we're taking the money from the book sales and putting it back into the church. Why? How is putting it back into your building or your business? How is that nonprofit? I mean, if you've got, 3,000 employees or whatever, somebody's profiting. Like, your employees.
So that's why we donate time. When we're down in Arizona, we donate a lot of time helping out the boarding schools down there on the reservation. I do volunteer stuff here with the VFW, and then I help out the dysfunctional veterans. And I don't give money to charities blindly anymore because I've gotten ripped off, and other people have gotten ripped off for a number of years for large charities. And I think another thing that the Wounded Warrior Foundation was actually being used for a front for different gun control lobbying groups. They were giving money to those guys too.
And see, the people always talk about the Hillary Foundation or the Clinton Foundation, but I don't think they're the only ones that act like that.
No, the NFL is a nonprofit. Did you know that? I found that out back in 2011, and I stopped watching the NFL before all this stupid nonsense that's been going on the last year or two.
How can the NFL be nonprofit? To get a Dallas Losers jersey is like $30 or something, $40,
yeah,
like that.
Big sports teams hold nonprofit status, so they rake in all kinds of money and don't have to pay taxes.
A friend of mine went to a game, Vikings game. He had to take out a note at the bank, man, to go to the game. How is that nonprofit?
Yeah, it's or the other thing that's really messed up about big sports, like take NASCAR for example. Well, we paid for the stadium. Back, was it 2005, 2004? They were looking to put in a new NASCAR track, and Arlington, Washington was one of the places they were looking at, because when the airport used to be a drag strip, they used to set records every weekend because of the low altitude, high oxygen content. So they wanted to put a NASCAR track up here. But they wanted us to pay for it, and then after we paid for it, they wanted to charge us $500 a ticket.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, fuck you. Sorry for the language, but like, you really? That is an insult. There's nothing about that that's right in any way.
Well,
pay for your own track and then charge whatever ticket prices you need to recoup your losses.
Yeah.
It's just like the reason that the Dallas Cowboys Stadium is where it's at is because the government did a land grab.
Yeah, what do you call it? Eminent domain. Eminent domain, so they could put the stadium in there.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's so the Dallas Cowboys could have a stadium. They did eminent domain.
Yep. That's one of the things we're worried about if we decide to go ahead and buy this property is they want to put more windmills in around us, right? We buy the property and we say, okay, we don't want you putting windmills on this. And it puts a giant hole in their windmill field. Then the government come in and take our dirt. They can just take they can take a road, they can take locations and stuff. They still get to put the windmills up.
Yeah, then they sell it to a Chinese company and put windmills up.
It's a load of junk. But anyway.
That all goes along without the rule of law, like you got companies who are big corporates and raking in all kinds of money, And again, they don't have to follow the laws like everyone else.
See, that eminent domain thing is something that needs to quit. I mean, they put it in place to keep people from gouging the government, but then the government found out they could use it to gouge the civilian, and that's what they do now, and it's a load of crap. And thank you, lawyers, again.
But it always takes Americans forever.
All right,
to
nice.
stand. Like, Americans will take stuff for 25 years, 30 years, 40 years before they finally stand up and put their foot down and realize that they need to stop fighting each other.
And that's another thing. How are we all going to get back on the same page? Because there are people that want everything that socialism offers, but they don't want to lose anything. There are people that don't want to have anything to do with socialism because they're afraid it's going to cost them the ability to do this and this and this. There are people that want parts of socialism because it allows them to make more money. There's, people, there's little pieces of this, that, and everybody says, well, this is good for me, but that's not good for me. Everybody wants what's best for them. America really has forgotten what it means to be a part of America. We're not worried about what's good for the country anymore. We're worried about, Wes is worried about what's good for Wes. Wayne's worried about what's good for Wayne. Chipper's worried about what's good for Chipper. H&X is worried about H&X. D-Day is worried about D-Day. Just going down the list. I'm not accusing anybody. I'm just, y'all's names were on the face of the screen thing. We don't want to get on the same page because compromise requires, what's that other word? I know y'all know it. Sacrifice.
Well, people want certain things, but then they don't want certain parts of the law to apply to them.
Exactly.
And the law has to apply to everyone. And I think at this point that the Democrats have pushed their people, the useful idiots who want socialism, so far to the left that they've lost control of it.
Mm-hmm.
There's going to have to be a purge before this country comes back together either way.
And I think it's funny. I've said this, I don't know how many times, but I don't think Trump was supposed to get elected. It was not supposed to happen. What just went down? How did this go wrong? What happened?
Yeah, I was really confused that night.
When he got it, I was like, what? There's no way he won.
I mean, they were like celebrating Hillary's win like 2 hours before that.
Yeah.
Well, what he did, Trump was, his campaign strategy was genius. He went in all the states that were historically ran by the unions in the Rust Belt that had always voted Democrat since like the 60s. And then they all switched because all the manufacturing jobs, all the steel jobs, all the auto jobs had gone overseas, and they're all living in poverty now. And the Democrats for years have been ignoring those states because they always had the unions in their pocket.
Yeah.
And that's what screwed them, was that they just counted on that union vote, and the union workers aren't in the union anymore, and they're all pissed.
Did you see that? And I don't know if there's any truth to it or not, but that thing that was going around, how the union had put a deal out telling the union members that they were still supposed to vote Democrat or whatever. But
hey, Mark.
They didn't listen.
Well, that's why I didn't join the union. When I went to welding school, I could have had a six-figure job easy as a Boilermaker within the Boilermakers Union in Seattle. And part of the union paperwork and the contract was to sign a declaration to vote Democrat. And I was 16 at the time. And I said, fuck you. I'm not letting you tell me who I have to vote for either side. And I walked away from it. And I was already certified at that point. I had gone to school. I'd been working since I was 13. I had my high school diploma. There was no reason I couldn't work for them. I had just finished welding school, was completely certified. And yeah, I walked away from it because of that. Because the union dues were ridiculous, whether you're in work or not. And they literally force you to vote one way.
Yeah.
They tried to make me sign a declaration that I would support the Washington State Democratic Party within the union contract to join the Boilermakers. And I have always been, what's the word for it? I've always been, I've had people offer me, I had one boss that I worked for, is a rich guy from Canada that has offered me ridiculous money to do things. But I've always stuck by my own moral code. Period. I don't sway. I've always been belligerent to people who violate my own moral code, basically. And I believe in the Constitution. And if I believe something's wrong, I won't do it.
Me too. Unless Mrs. says to, and then I have to do it in English because I'm scared. Not really. I'm not scared of her. She's scared of me. It's all right.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I mean, I threw away a very good paying job that would have led to a lot of money, a lot more money down the road because of that. I don't, and I've, everything I've done, including that and in the military, I can still sleep at night when I go home. So
everybody's like, oh man, there sure is a lot of blue voters in Texas now and stuff and blah, blah, blah. All the guys putting up all the windmills all over the rural part of this state who have been down here for surprisingly enough long enough to get their Texas driver's license now. And such are all union workers from Minnesota and stuff. They're all union workers from blue states. I applied for the windmills.
Not only that, but we have people from California.
In California, we had Russia Californians. I applied to work at the windmills when they first started doing them. They handed me the application and then a pamphlet or another stack of papers. It's like I was filling out the application. I looked at the other one. I was like, "What's this right here?" And it was a deal to join the union. And I said, "I don't mind doing the application or whatever, but I don't want to join the union." And they were just like, "Well, we're not going to hire you. Then you have to join the union if you want the job." I was like, "Okay." I've applied to no less than 5 jobs around here that paid really well, but I had to sign on to the union to take the job. And I'm like, no, I don't need somebody to tell me when I'm going to show up for work and when I'm not. I don't need somebody to tell me whether or not I'm satisfied with my pay. If I'm not satisfied with my pay, I'll go apply for another job somewhere.
yeah, that's the other thing too, is I don't need somebody to tell me when to strike, when to protest, when not to work, when to work, or if I'm allowed to take a job at a place. I'm a grown-ass man.
No market is not a right to work state. That you do not have the right to work. They can fire you. They don't have to give a reason. They just say your job's over, buddy. Go home.
No, Mark, I don't watch the White House stuff. I did watch that thing the other day. I thought that was funny. And LS, you make a very good point, which is something that I have struggled with in recent months about Trump. And I am not on the Trump train for the fact that there are no trials for treason, and the Clintons and Obama are still running free.
Yeah, I've wondered about the that. I wonder if they've been pushing all this investigation into his world so hard and not even looking at them at all. I'm wondering if he has any really control over it. I wonder if he might just be trying to stay alive. And I don't know. I wish they would have already gone to jail. They should have. But, I mean.
Well, I was hoping that there would be a military interdiction when he made that agreement with Mattis. Because that's the only way to fix Congress at this point. There has to be some kind of military action. As bad as it is, and the only way to fix Congress is if we go in there and we get rid of all of them, and we have trials for treason for every time they violated their oath of office, and every time that they have violated any of their, their oath of office. Anytime they've taken money from a foreign government, and we start hanging these guys for treason, and we vote new people in according to the lines of the Constitution, not off of policy. The state legislatures have to pick the two best from amongst themselves. We actually follow the term limits in existence in the Constitution, not argue over whether we need to create term limits or not. It's already written. And that's the only way to fix the system is if we clean house. I mean, I honestly think there's only two people in there doing their job.
Yep. And I'm really hoping that Trump, I know you're not on the Trump train, but I'm hoping that Trump gets it again, and then following him, I want the vice president in there. You know, the Pence, I would like to see Pence have it for 8 years after Trump got there. Because then if we had 16 years of good leadership, and if we can we need the House and the Senate both. We need to put people in the House and the Senate that support nationalism. Because Trump's not a Republican, he's a nationalist, okay?
Nationalism is a good thing. It doesn't mean you're a socialist or a dictator.
Nationalism is the exact opposite of socialism. Nationalism means you are, nationalism is an ideal. It's not a political way of thinking. It's an idealism. It means that the United States comes first inside our borders. Okay? We don't make an agreement with a foreign country unless it's what's best for our country, or at least good for our country. Like, we don't give whatever the dadgummit, NATO, we don't give NATO a whole bunch of guns and ammo and people and not get paid for them. You know, why aren't they renting those? You know, if they want us to police Europe for them, why aren't they paying us for the security forces? Why do we have to pay for it? You know?
Oh, yeah, Europe always gets mad about everything we do. Okay, why don't you sanction us with your army then?
And, you know, that's actually before I got a hold of, or before I realized that Wayne had tried to get a hold of me, LS and HCP, that's where I was going to go with tonight's deal, which is running really long again, is the fact that it's going to come down to having to have a reset. It's how bad the reset is and how far back it pushes us. For the reset to occur on the level that it would have to occur, the country, the borders of our nation will not remain the same. Okay? the borders across the world will not remain the same. I don't believe that, let's put it this way. If the whole world fell apart at the same time, Russia wouldn't stay inside Russia's border. China wouldn't stay inside China's borders. None of them Middle East boys like their borders right now. Okay. There's still some tension in parts of Europe between certain countries. Okay. There is no way. Well, Canada would probably be happy to stay where they're at, but they're going to have issues between the people who wanted to be French and the people that want to be English Canadians. So you've got the people up there that are, what do you call it? Right wing and left wing. Mexico, South Mexico doesn't like the way Central Mexico runs their business. The people on the border of Mexico do not like Mexico City. Texas could not repel the border. The southern border is too big. There's no way to keep Mexico from trying to take over the north side of the Rio Grande and that imaginary line for whatever reason. I don't see California staying America. I don't see El Paso or Houston, Louisiana staying America.
Well, let's be honest, a lot of those places aren't America.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, we would lose almost all of our ports if a reset happened. Okay.
We've already lost our ports, so the Clintons fixed that.
Well, I'm talking actual physical political control. There would be the Los Angeles all the way up to San Francisco would be back to Mexico if we could stop them there.
That actually, I think China would take advantage of that situation because they own the ports, they own the wind farms, they own a ton of the land and the mining equipment. They've already embedded themselves here for the last 25 years and learned the system, learned the infrastructure.
There's actually, and other than the ports and stuff in Southern California and everything, and the nice beaches and the warm weather and stuff, why do you need what do they do in Southern California? Do they grow peaches or something? I don't know.
Sweat and take advantage of air conditioning. There isn't anything but desert in Southern California.
I mean, that's it's like the top part of Baja, which is a desert. It's surrounded by water, but it's a desert. That doesn't make any sense. Let me think. Anyway,
Walter, the thing about China is militarily, they're not a match for us. They're not a threat, but they've been embedding themselves in our system for years since the Clinton administration first took office. And they have a certain level of technology. So if you had an EMP event, for example, and I've been talking about this for over 10 years and people thought I was crazy back then. If you have an EMP event, for example, in the fall before winter, and you wipe out the power grid, nobody has to have a military advantage over us. We will destroy ourselves over the winter. Inside of a year, 80 to 90% of the population will be gone. They can roll in any time after that and take advantage with the infrastructure still intact.
Same thing. They could do it in the summertime. It doesn't matter when they do it. It would be more effective in the winter. But if you knock the power out, there's no irrigation. There's no fuel delivery. There's no farm. Okay? Boom. The end. And then after everybody starves to death middle of summer, all they've got to do is go ahead and wait through the winter and stuff. And then all they got to do is, instead of coming in and cleaning up bodies, all they've got to do is come in and clean up bones.
Our power plants are on an external and internal system, and they shut down immediately if there's any issue. And they have hours of fuel, and they passed a new law recently saying that they have to have 6 or 7 days, 6 to 8 days worth of fuel. But there's only two warehouses in Arizona, and I think one somewhere back east, maybe in Arkansas, that supply all of the power plants, and they can't supply all of them. So they're susceptible to being hacked. They're susceptible from internal problems with chips. We don't countries don't have to launch nukes anymore to create EMP with high electro microwaves. They can actually create localized EMPs. Russia has like little drones that they launch that they do it on small cities with. Other places can do it other ways, but it doesn't have to be a nuke anymore. And I think that's part of the reason with the buildup of the Space Force is because they're worried about them doing it with a satellite.
Yeah, agree with all that. And I've heard about most of it, Westwind. LS. The problem is there is a cultural wall that there's no way that unless the culture changes from south of the border to north of the border, that we would be able to continue functioning. They really, yeah, they work hard. They're good people. But, well, 2 out of 10 stay that way when they get here. Okay, they're not happy with just cooperating or living amongst and being a part of. They want what they have at home, which is they do what they want when they want, the way they want, and then they want to get paid. They want to come here and get extra money from Whitey. That's it. And I know that's racist and insensitive and culturally biased and all that stuff, but I was raised in Texas, and I am not out of bounds on this. I mean, it's not politically correct, but it's correct. And there's no when Bush agreed to that free trade crap and jobs started going south, God, I knew it was over then. I mean, I thought the free trade was going to be, let's lower the tariffs and stuff and make it to where you can ship stuff back and forth easier. I didn't know it was going to be, okay, let's just take all the manufacturing somewhere else. How is that ever going to be a good idea? How do we have a gross domestic product if we're not producing anything? You can't measure a product. You can't measure the production of a country based off the number of dollars that flow through it, because dollars aren't real. There has to be something has to back up that currency, which if it's based on manufacturing and production and jobs and stuff, yeah. But the jobs, a job, let's put the guy growing the cow is producing something. The guy slaughtering the cow is producing something. The guy butchering the cow is producing something. The guy selling the cow at the grocery store, at the burger joint, is not producing anything. They're just selling. The first 3 guys produced meat. Then the other guys sell the meat. Grocery stores don't produce anything. They sell produce. Restaurants do not produce anything. They sell produce. Same with coal. Coal, the guy digging the coal out of the ground is producing coal. The guy hauling the coal on the train, the railroad, believe it or not, is actually producing a source of energy for the power plants. The power plant is producing energy. To go to manufacturing plants where they produced, I don't know, cars and stuff. Those plants are all gone now. Now, past the electric company, the power generation, the coal, electric.
You know what?
So,
You know. Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Of things not being produced here. I remember a while. What was it? About 6 or 7 months ago, they caught the Chinese government shipping technology that has been sent over here. Like, I forget what it was. It was computers or something that the government was buying.
From China?
Yeah, they got caught with software, putting software into the technology that they sent over here that monitors things or either like records it, or it was in the media for like a week and then it just disappeared.
And I could be wrong. There's this, they talk about China over here in the side chat still. I'm like, I ain't scared of China.
But that goes along with not producing things here. That's national security. Like, imagine all the cell phones, all the computers, all the technology that if they're doing that with one small portion of that they could be chipping.
And well, China's got the corner of the market because they have the rare earth metals. You know that they all the waste and stuff from mining the other things here, they could go back, they could mine the dirt that they pulled out of the mine to get to the other stuff, and the rare earth metals are there. They would just have to put a bunch of people back to work in the United States. They would have to start producing stuff so we could have our own rare earth metals to make cell phones and flat screens and touch screens and all this other crap. But then they would have to put Americans back to work. That would strengthen our economy. That would cause our country to boom and explode and become economically independent. And why in the world would we want to do that? That's just hateful. I mean, that's some of that Nazi nationalism crap right there. But I digress. No, I don't. What do you think, Just Aid?
Spec?
Wait. Just Aid, what do you think? You should. Do we need to worry about Canada or Great Britain? Are y'all planning on taking us over again? He's not answering.
Is he still driving home?
Well, he's down here in the bottom.
Sorry, yeah, I had me. I've got a switch on my mic as well.
Oh.
Yeah, you're not going to get invaded from England, only through tourism.
Okay, just wanted to make sure because we still got our guns, just in case y'all wondering.
Yeah, we've got bows and flintlocks and catapults and stuff. We've got trebulaes as well, so we can throw things over hills.
We don't need to worry about y'all's tea anymore because we got the Black Rifle Coffee Company, buddy.
Can't beat Twinings, mate.
Hey, Wes, ask me about BRC offline.
Okay. Have you been watching all their how to make coffee things or whatever?
I've been following them since they started in 2014, and their marketing campaign is freaking genius.
Yeah, it is. I hate apples, or what do you call it, pumpkin spice, but I actually want to make some pumpkin spice coffee that way.
We should actually invite England over and have them build trebuchets, and we could start a catch and release program on the border.
That's a super good plan.
Yeah, don't shoot them, throw them back. They'll soon get the idea.
We could save money on it though if we didn't give them the parachutes. We could just give them an umbrella.
That takes the fun out.
There's that. Load them up in those inflatable balls or whatever, which are like just roll, boing, they bounce another 2 counties or whatever before they get stopped.
And they roll over with others. That'd be quite good.
That'd be funny. What's that one show where the Brothers Grimm, the guy puts himself on the tail and tries to launch himself up in the window or whatever?
Morgan Freeman and Kevin Costner do it on a catapult. This is quite cool.
Was that Robin Hood?
Yeah, see, that's the bad version. Yeah,
the bad version. Yeah,
that is the inaccurate version. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like the Russell Crowe version.
Oh, the one that was all historically is correctish.
Yeah, it's not bad.
If you look into like all these crazy stories and you look at you actually read the history, the history is usually more interesting and crazier than all the fake drama they try to put in stuff.
Yeah, in all the films, they make out Richard the Lionheart to be a really good guy. No, he wasn't a really good guy at all.
No, he was a dick.
He was a wrong one, mate. Yeah, this is a lot of the reasons why they didn't pay his ransom when they kidnapped him, because they didn't want him back.
No, all the British.
King John was bad, but not as bad as Richard. Sorry, Westman. What you say?
Oh no, you're good. All the not the aristocracy. Whatever the guys who owned all the land, the British nobility at the time, they all signed that agreement. I can't think of the name of it. Basically, rebelled against them.
There's an original BBC production called Robin of Sherwood. The first season, I can't remember, Michael something or other, and the second season is actually Sean Connery's son, and that actually shows a really, really true depiction of King Richard. Now I can't remember the name of the guy. It's the English guy out of Sliders. He plays King Richard, and he's an absolute bad un. He tries to get Robin Hood. This is all true. In folklore, it's true. He gave Robin Hood amnesty just to try and send him to the Holy Land so they could kill him. And this is why he didn't want to go to the Holy Lands. He said if Robin Hood and Little John had a conversation saying that if they're going to get killed, they want to get killed in England, not in the Holy Lands.
Well, the whole Robin Hood story, it's about it's more or less about a class of people, not one guy. You had a middle class was basically being born at that time of skilled archers that were basically contractors being sent to the wars and everything, and they were coming back and working for themselves.
Yeah, a lot of the middle classes were still actually Anglo-Saxon. They used the Normans used the hierarchy of the Saxons to try and gnaw down the peasants more.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that we believe it to be, he was actually called Robin of Locksley, and that's probably about 40 miles away from where I come from.
That's awesome.
This is all we got taught at school. All our local history was basically Robin Hood, Knights Templars. We've got the oldest pub in the world. It's called the Trip to Jerusalem, and it's actually built inside the walls of Nottingham Castle. Mm. Now there is a pub in China that they claim to be the oldest, but they can't prove it, and we can. And that's what we all got taught. It'll take me a while to remember, but I can tell you the ins and outs of Nottingham Castle, how it worked, how it used to be the capital of England. We got
Nottingham used to be the capital?
Yeah. Nottingham in Robin Hood time, Nottingham was the capital of England, yeah.
Well, that explains a lot. See, we don't learn that over here, and I didn't, even with the research I've done on it, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was before the Romans came. When the Romans came, they took London or Londinium, and then when they left, It ended up being Nottingham because it's very much the middle of the country. It's quite centralised. Here's a bit of trivia. Latin for longbow is Grand Arc de Guerre, which is great bow of war. You got taught that as well.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. That's me. That's me. I'm done for now. All that talking.
All that time to wear yourself out.
Yeah, that was quite a lot for me this time around. Yeah.
Hey, we got him to tell us history of England there. Finally, we got him to open up about something. History is like the real history is so much cooler and everything. Like I watched this historical docudrama on Netflix about England and stuff, and I didn't know that y'all had Vikings that actually won your country for you and stuff like that.
Yeah. It wasn't all just pillaging. There was actually a lot of trade going on between the Scottish and the Irish, and then you had Danes law on the Danes law on the left, and then there was the Vikings law on the right or something. I can't remember. But after the Vikings settled and there was no more killing, they just traded like the rest of us.
Man, that was supposed to be a bad joke about that, The Last Kingdom, but man, that was like sort of, there was some basis to that show.
Well, there was a little bit. The Last Kingdom is more about the Anglo-Saxons. The Vikings were always portrayed as raiders and pillagers, but the great majority of them were actually traders and farmers. Yep. And their history, if you looking up I've dug a lot of the history into this because of my family, and the history of the German tribes is they were all over. When Rome came up, they pushed north, or they moved north up before that, but the Vikings themselves, their seafaring and their trading and their warrior culture goes back before the Bronze Age. They actually find helmets, swords, and Viking longships between 350 and 500 BC, all the way back through the Bronze Age. I mean, their culture was around, and they were trading with the world. They find Bronze Age Buddhists from Asia. I mean, but if you read any type of like normal history or anything, it's like they just magically pop up around 800 AD.
And just killed everything in sight and didn't do nothing apart from kill folk.
But they had already been trading through
They discovered America.
Yeah, they discovered America.
The Vikings discovered America. No one else. It was rediscovered, but they were the first ones. Yeah.
But they find the amber that they find in tombs in Egypt has actually been traced up to the Nordic, up to the Balkans areas where they mined it, and then traded it down through the Mediterranean to Egypt. They found golden Buddhas all the way from Southeast Asia in like Sweden and Finland.
Yeah, we dug up that Egyptian rock. It's a blue, I can't remember what it's called. It's a blue rock with lots of little yellow dots in it. And that comes from Egypt. And they found that in burial sites in the south of England.
But the real history of a lot of that stuff is so much more interesting than the way it's portrayed.
Better than Hollywood. I think Hollywood couldn't match it.
Well, the German tribes had an oral tradition, and their practices were a lot like the natives in the Americas, and they didn't start writing really until Christianity took over. And Christianity, no offense, Wes, or anybody that's Christian, because I'm just talking about history. They did the same thing that the Roman Catholic Church tried to do. They started taking over their holidays and blending up Christianity and forcing the kings and people who were controlling things, marrying their daughters off, with the stipulation that they had to become Christian when they married him. They slowly lost their culture, just like the natives did over here. And the only thing that was written about them when they came down was a church writing against them, saying that, oh, these savages just came out of nowhere and attacked us. When the truth was, there were missionaries and other stuff. They were already been trading and sending missionaries up there, trying to convert them from their religion that they didn't want to be converted out of.
In the early Christian church, I mean, you're not going to hurt my feelings about it, because if you watch that, The Last Kingdom, and you're like, okay, that's how the church was running things back then. No wonder nobody wanted to be a Christian. And that's, yeah, the early Christian church. Well, let me rephrase it. The church from the Middle Ages, because everybody confuses the early Christian church with the early Christian church. The church from that type of, from the Iron Age, beginning about the Iron Age or whatever, was not really very good. They had some pretty thrown off ideas, because by then they themselves had incorporated quite a bit of paganism into their church already. And they had decided that you could just make something godly by saying it was godly. You could say, okay, this is, we'll just say God has claimed this now, and this is God, so we'll put this in the church. And you wind up with all kinds of things that aren't supposed to be in there, like nuns and priests and confessionals, and you have to be baptized or you're going to burn in hell, and you can't marry somebody who hasn't been baptized or whatever, which is actually in the Bible that specifically, if your spouse is not, then you should not leave them. But anyway,
I think a good movie, I mean, even though it's a movie that covers that, have you ever seen Kingdom of Heaven?
Oh, with Orlando Bloom.
Yeah, that was really good in
Yeah.
the fact that it covers the political aspect of the churches, and then there's even the good priest in there that's like, he's not like the rest of them. He's a normal guy, and he's like, it's what's in your heart that matters. And it really covered a lot of the political stuff, even though it was a movie.
Yeah, like the Friar Tuck in Robin Hood, he was a normal guy.
Yeah.
and what do you call it? Dadgummit. The Jesuit order, when it first started, they were not really popular with the rest of the Catholic Church, because they were trying to adhere to what the scriptures said rather than what the church said. And it basically came down to a point, no, y'all do what we say, or we're just going to and the church turned their back on the Jesuit order, and the Jesuit order finally had to come back on because they were all getting killed. They basically lost the protection of Rome. And in that, when you lost that, people started killing you, and nobody did anything about it.
And some of those orders around the time of the Crusades in a medieval era, they started in Rome, and they aligned themselves with the Catholic Church, and they thrived through the Middle Ages. But that's never talked about. Like the Knights Templar, I don't think that they were evil, but they start much earlier than history books and stuff say. They always say that they started during the Crusades after they pushed the Muslims out of Europe to protect the peasants and stuff going down to see the holy sites. But I've been to places in Croatia and other places in Europe where there's old Roman churches, old Catholic Roman churches that are still standing. And if you go down and you dig around to the historical sites there are beautifully carved Roman sarcophaguses with Templar symbolism on them. I believe the Templars were actually much older than that time period. And they went all the way back to the days of Rome, and they stuck with the church after Rome fell.
I believe that too. And before that, there would have been precursors to the Templars anyway.
And why would it be any different than now? I mean, and please don't get mad at me for saying this, but the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican over there, they have an army. They got people. It's their job to kill folks.
A Swiss Guard, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Swiss Guard the Vatican, yeah.
Those dudes don't have a sense of humor either.
None at all.
Well, do you blame them? The uniform they got to wear?
Well, that's like your guys at the palace.
In uniform.
We don't have little pom-poms on our little slippers with little white silk socks. I know that's a bit much like, but, at least we wear boots.
The guys that aren't in uniform that are in the Swiss Guard over there, that are there, they're there. Those are the ones you got to worry about.
Mm.
The guy out there walking around with all the other tourists who could take out 20 of them before he broke a sweat. Those guys.
Yeah.
I never trusted the Swiss. I actually got in trouble because of the Swiss. That's a discussion for another day.
Think about it.
Causing international incidences while a representative of the U.S. is not a good thing.
How can you trust somebody?
Didn't you?
How can you trust somebody that puts holes in their cheese and forks on their knives? Just see.
But the Templars were destroyed because they were a self-serving organization. Once the church stopped having a use for them and they built their own system of wealth, that's when Friday the 13th happened.
Yeah, and that Friday the 13th is only bad luck if you're the Pope or a high-ranking Catholic person. Because what was it? Now I've got to think. Was it October the 13th, 1307? The Pope said he didn't want any more Templars. So all the Templars walked into the Vatican and said, well, here we are, try and stop us. And then he said, no, we won't be doing that. And then I think over a period of several decades, they split the Templars up, and that's how they got them killed. I think that's how it is, but I'm trying to think back 30 years of education. Yeah, that's right. 1307. Yeah, the Knights Templars walked into the Vatican City and said that they didn't want to be, made unemployed. So they had to do it another way, which was split them up and then kill them off slowly, I think.
See, I believe the Templars were true Christians, and I believe that they were doing the right thing. And when they became more wealthy than the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church could not control them, that's when all the crazy blasphemy stuff started about them doing satanic rituals and everything else.
Yeah, I like to think a lot of that was propaganda.
Hey, it's the same thing. The whole, if you've got somebody that's not following your narrative or supporting your narrative, then you get rid of them. The model that's being used against us as a society right now is not a new model. It's not a new invention. It's been proven time and time again throughout history. What do you call it? I mean, the Roman Catholic Church could not afford to have the Knights Templar in power, so the Knights Templar was not in power for long.
Luckily, they escaped, or at least a fleet of them did.
Some of them did. Did you hear about that? When they were, they were exploring the coasts of was it South America, I think, and they found on one island there were what do you call it, natives on the island, but they all had dark tans and stuff, but they were blonde. Did y'all ever see that?
Yeah, I've read about different stories like that of different places all over the Americas.
There's one in Africa that I've heard about.
And it's weird that, you know, people living on islands out in the ocean, you know, on coasts of different continents and stuff looked European. You know what I'm saying? Sounds like, you know, a boat with a few families on it found a place that was really nice and there was nobody there, and they, hey, you know what, we can live here. They just stayed. They didn't have any reason to go back and trade. They had everything they wanted.
Well, the Americas were known about to certain groups, fishermen and other people would come over and use resources, but the Irish had been here before. And the Irish had it in their stories. And the Templar fleet that escaped went to Ireland and stayed in Ireland for a short time and then sailed west from Ireland. And there's only one place for them to go. They either had to go south to the Canary Islands, to Florida and South America, or they had to go northwest to the Azores and up through Canada, where other natives have stories of Templars and white people, which maybe they split their fleet and they went both ways.
Yeah. Would explain things, though.
Maybe they, at that point, when they left Ireland, they split into two fleets. So if the Catholics caught up to them, they wouldn't take them all out.
Maybe explain some of the, and I'm not busting on the religions of the indigenous American peoples either, but it's kind of weird how a couple of the larger tribes, Plains Indians and stuff, believed in one great spirit. I mean, there were a lot of spirits, but there was one. And their rules were pretty casual, but they were really familiar sounding.
What I find interesting, too, is a lot of native tribes have similarities with the German and Scandinavian religions and the way that they weave the Navajo, like, for example, none of these tribes did any metalworking independently. They didn't invent the wheel independently like other places. But the Navajo, if you go down to the Navajo stories, they came from the East. And they're great stories, and they've been finding more and more evidence that the natives actually came from Europe because the ice shelf was closer, and spear points and old arrow points actually match more with European points. Their stories say they came from there. And then when you go to the Southwest and you look around, down outside of El Centro, up in the mountains, there is petroglyphs of Viking ships. There's Viking rune stones in New Mexico. There's petroglyphs of a Viking ship, an iron cooking pot, and an iron sword in northern Arizona in an undisclosed location I have personally found. And they weave the exact same way, they build their combs the same way, and the fact that they do mining and metalsmithing, they're very good silversmiths. None of the other native tribes did any of that, and they also have a lot of similarities in that the Vikings had the 9 worlds and the Navajo have the different worlds, and a lot of the stories are very similar.
Mm.
And
it wasn't that hard for a Viking to make it around the tip of Florida and come up through, you know, what's that? The Sabine River.
They went the other way. I think they went. I had always I always had a theory that they hit both coasts because they were famous for sailing down rivers, and it's known that it hasn't been proven, but it's known that they made it through Asia because of the artifacts that they find in Scandinavia. But they have recently discovered a Viking village in northern Australia.
Wait a minute. That's going to ruin the whole Aboriginals' claim to whatever, because heresy, I say heresy.
And well, the thing that they look for, that's how like Lansung metals in Canada, for example, besides the Icelandic sagas saying that they found America and that they found Vinland, land of natural grapevines, which is in America. Um, they had whenever they just when they start digging in these sites and they find like old foundations and they look for sod homes. One of the other things that they look for is a forge. Vikings and Germans, when they would always build a forge first so they could repair their ships. So if they find a forge with nails in the ashes, they know immediately that it was a Viking village versus anyone else. It basically excludes anyone else immediately off that find alone.
See, I didn't know that about the Vikings building the forge first, but it makes sense.
And that's why, like Langsung Meadows was not a large village, but there is a lot of forge activity and shipbuilding material, which it was more or less a stop of further exploration into the New World.
And think about it. I mean, the Vikings did a lot of trading for steel and stuff. Let's say they were coming to the Americas and they were loading their boat down with, because places in North American stuff, you can literally walk up and pick copper up off the ground. The Indians didn't know what it were. The First Nations people didn't know what it was. So they're like, hey, how much you want for the rock? And, they traded for the rock. They wound up, they go back and they were trade copper and, high quality iron ore for already finished products and stuff back across the water.
Well, I have a running theory that the water levels were higher back then, and the rivers in North America weren't dammed up, and all these really low valleys through the Southwest and through California that are at or below sea level are all old lake beds, and they were probably flooded. They were probably rivers back in the day, and they were able to make their way up through those because that's what they were famous for, was sailing up rivers with shallow draft ships.
That's possible.
And the thing, especially with the Navajo being really good at silversmithing, but none of the tribes worked with metal or invented the wheel separate. None of them invented the wheel. Also, their medicine wheel is the same symbol as the sun wheel. So there's a lot of similarities that are too close, that are just too many coincidences.
Why would the Vikings not have shared the wheel with them though? You know what I'm saying? The wheel would have been cool. And if if the Vikings had made a cart or something to haul stuff, well, maybe they didn't need to ever make a cart. I don't know.
Well, they were pretty much living in their they would farm the crops right below, and they would live higher in elevation, like on the hills and the cliffs right above their farms. And they pretty much lived right where they farmed. So I think when they traded, they just traded with baskets and stuff like all the other natives.
I think there's actually a film with David Soul from Scotchy and Hutch. He actually plays a Viking, and they've actually got longboats, and they're actually in America. Let me just check. I've been looking at Lights Templars. Yeah, it took about 7 years to kill the main guy. It took him 7 years to hunt him down. It took me a while to find it. Go to IMDb.
Good night, Walter. I'm seeing stuff over here on the side chat. What do y'all think about what's going on in South Africa? How y'all think that's going to play out?
Well, when you kill the people that make your food, it usually doesn't play out too good.
No.
Yep, there's that. Those people demanding land or whatever, they're not going to be able to farm it.
Have you done any research on the specific land over there that they're fighting about?
A little bit, and they're fighting over about 90% of the country right now, honestly.
They want all the white farmers out.
The land that's over there right now, from what I was reading, that the farmers are currently on, was land that wasn't even being used before colonization, that has been groomed and built in the farmland over a number of generations. It was useless basically before.
Yep.
And these people with these farms have lived and worked with the black population in South Africa, and they feed them, and they feed parts of Europe, and they're the ones who basically have been cultivating this land the whole time. And that's why, like, the local tribe, who is a large portion of the population, is siding with them, their king, because they understand that if you kill these guys off and you run them off the land, they're the ones who have the knowledge that know how to farm this land. And that whole area is going to starve out.
Well, I think that's the plan, though. They take it without compensation, so the people have no means to leave the country.
Holy cow, look how many thumbs down you have. Sorry.
Wow, who's thumbsing me down so hard over here?
You got a record tonight. Sorry.
I guess it's all that Catholic stuff.
Oh, probably. My bad.
Nah. When did you happen to notice when they happened?
I just now looked.
I bet if somebody went over there to that one place that he who shall not be mentioned, or them who shall not be mentioned, that they're off the air now.
Oh.
But I don't really care. Activity's activity. Appreciate the acknowledgement. The thing on South Africa, I don't know. It's just going to be ugly. If they get what they want, it's going to be ugly. If they don't get what they want, it's going to be ugly. The new little political parties that are coming up talking about kill the white man, take his stuff. That's just not going to work. It's, and if they don't get to take the land, then they're going to raise a stink because they didn't get to take the land. It's just not ever going to. It's gone too far. That's something the UN should have been all over it. I mean, they should have shut that down a long time ago. But they don't want it to shut down. They need
Africa unstable.
Yep. Can you imagine?
At least Russia is offering to bring them up to Russia and give them farmland.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think Putin is the bad guy that everyone says he is. I mean, yeah, he's done some bad things, but I think he genuinely cares about the Russian people.
Yep. Putin is Russia first. That's the only real problem I have with Putin. But hey, that's the only real problem Russians have with Trump is he's America first. That's the way it should be. You know. Now, Russians hated Ronald Reagan because he starved a lot of those people to death. But that's how the wall came down. It wasn't any other thing but the economy was destroyed. The people went without food. The economy collapsed. The walls came down. And that's how that happened. And I was all proud of him for doing it at the time, but then when you research and you realize, man, what a mess did we make? Because that evolved into that whole where the Baltics was going to pieces and genocide, and you know, there was the what was it, 10 or 15 years after that wall came down, that you did not want to be over there in that part of the world for nothing. It was pretty rough, if I remember it right. And our fearless leader, Clinton, just ignored it forever. Forget how it came to the public view and stuff, and then they finally had to do something and make them stop just killing people at will over there.
Yeah, they had a lot of problems even into the early 2000s. Like I think around the mid 2000s, they started to stabilize. From what Survival Russia was saying on his channel.
It was ugly, and that's what the communist bloc went through when they collapsed. Everybody's talking about this whole, it needs to collapse and we need to start over and stuff. There was a lot of folks died in the collapse of the last big economy country that did it. They could, like Russia prime or proper or whatever, could actually throw up a fence and say, okay, y'all going to stop right here. You're not going to bring down that crap over here. But we could not. I mean, we can't do that here. If it gets super ugly in California, we can't keep it from spreading to Nevada. In Arizona, we just can't. You can't.
What? I think there's too many variables now. It's not going to be one thing when I think it's going to be a chain reaction of things.
And I still think it's going to happen so slow that 80% of the population don't even see it coming. Or more. I may fixate on it too much. I think I spend a little bit too much time trying to make sure I see it coming. Because I really do think it's going to be like a snake in the grass. You're not going to know it's there until it bites you. And that's just where we're going. That's just the way it's going to be. And we can argue over what's going to cause it. If they figure out some way of bringing that yellow vest crap, which in Europe, what they're doing, I agree with what they got going on over there. But the yellow vest people need to understand that there's going to have to be compromise. They're going to have to give up something to get what they want. You can't not pay taxes and have all the stuff that they expect from the taxes.
Yeah, that's part of the problem is they've gotten so used to being on the government teat that they don't understand how the system works, and hopefully it doesn't end up being a mess like their last revolution.
And everybody out here that's listening to the sound of my voice, check with your city and see if they're starting any of this crap like this city in California did, paying their citizens $500 a month just to make sure that they got enough money in their house. That just to live. I mean, if you make less than X number of dollars in this city, the city's just going to give you $500 a month.
Right, so they work and get dole as well.
Yes. Okay.
No way.
Yeah, if that takes off,
California's a test bed for all this crap.
California left the union and no one's noticed, have they? That's what's gone on.
Something like that. I mean, how do the other people out there in California think that $500 is going to get paid? I mean, it's coming out of the guy who is actually making a living. He's going to have to pay more taxes now. His property tax is going to have to go up. His fuel tax is going to have to go up. His sales tax is going to have to go up. State income tax is going to have to go up. I mean, there's a lot of people in California. $500 per person, that's a lot of money. And then you got to hire somebody to write the checks. That's more money. Then you got to hire somebody to watch the person write the checks, make sure they're writing the checks right. So there's some more money. Then you got to hire somebody to keep track of who's ordering the checks, so y'all don't run out of checks. And then you got to hire somebody to make sure y'all got ink to print the checks. It just gets into money.
So you got to rent an office, haven't you, for all those people to be in?
You've got to make a bureau. You got to make the CBQRXT view or whatever.
Well, they've been talking about that universal allowance or whatever it is, and they've been pushing that. The UN's been pushing it, and now our politicians have been openly talking about it. And now all of a sudden, California's giving their citizens this money, and it's all a big scheme. All these UN policies that they want to try to push on America and all these socialist policies, they always try it in California first and then try to spread it between the socialist cities.
Okay, let's do like that one Flat Earth guy did. He built a rocket out of scrap metal. He almost made it off the planet. He made it like 1,500 feet or something like that. I forget.
I just like how they fought him on it forever, and then they were just finally like, "Oh, just go kill yourself."
And then he didn't die.
But he's my favorite idiot. I mean, this dude actually had the balls to build a rocket and launch himself in it.
I mean, at least the suit.
He didn't make it very far, though.
I'm going to need to hire an astronaut because, yeah, I'm not getting in there.
He got further than he was a lot.
I mean, couldn't he have made out better with a hot air balloon? I'm just asking.
Maybe he ejected because he started to see the curvature of the Earth.
Yeah.
He had a religious epiphany.
Oh. Basics, the other guy that did they flew the little airplane to however many miles up there. The guys are officially astronauts. They made astronauts by 2 kilometers or something like that, 3 kilometers. Anyway, there's a little 4 or 5 second video of them. They've got to up into space, and then they did a little rollover. They actually rolled the spaceship just to be, ooh, look what we did kind of deal. You can see out the front windshield. Dude, the planet's not curved. I was like, damn it. Why is the planet not round? And then I watched it like 20 times before I realized that the reason there's no curvature of the planet is because they're upside down. So when their ship comes over, the curved windshield actually inverts the curve of the planet. You can catch it at the very last of the video. You can see what's going on. You're like, oh, okay, it's the windshield flattening out the planet. The planet's not actually flat. I'm good.
Yeah, I was actually going to do a video today. I'll probably do it tomorrow about conspiracy theories versus just like fantasy, like conspiracy theories about actual policy that the government passes that no one pays attention to that's actually written in the law. That's a legitimate conspiracy.
Right.
Versus just crazy stuff like flat earth. Or I was watching this video on, I'll say the name because I don't really care either way, about this Oppenheimer project. That YouTube channel, a lot of people recommended it. And this dude is like, he's in Western Washington, and he's like, there's this crazy military buildup, and 3 Black Hawk helicopters flew by my house today, so that's proof that something's going down. And it's like, there's bases all over Western Washington. Chances are helicopters and aircraft from the military fly over your house every day because they have to fly every day to maintain their qualifications. That doesn't mean there's a conspiracy theory going on. It's not proof of anything other than they're flying.
Yeah. Now, I admit we got Air Force bases all over the place around here. And you know what? I see the B-1Bs all the time. Now, when I see the big 5.2s flying, I'm like, okay, what the heck is going on here? Those make me nervous.
The thing about those is they're just like every other military aircraft. They have to maintain their qualifications.
Yeah.
And especially if they're training pilots, they have to fly 24/7. They'll have flights going from the butt crack of dawn to, late at night to make sure everybody stays qualified and trained. So when they do have to fly a mission, we don't fall out of the sky like some other countries' militaries.
Yeah. You see, that's the thing. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people out there. There's so BP Earthwatch, man. Woohoo. But yeah, there's some of the guys out there that do this conspiracy theory watching. I'm just like, okay. It's not objective at all. Even the stuff they do, you're just like, dude, you're like fishing really hard.
When I talk about stuff that's been written in the law, stuff that's not even a theory, it's proven fact.
So yeah, you need to do that. What you did tonight, you need to put a video out there on that. That would be a good one. That would be a good series for you to do. I'm not going to do it because that sounds like way too much work. But
what, the gun law history?
Yeah, that would be super. And don't worry about making it too long either, man. Make it a 30-minute video, but come up with a really cool title like "Gun Grabbing Started in Yada Yada Yada."
Well, Amy, you're right about that. That is the biggest legitimate threat if another country was going to do something about us. But just because a helicopter flies by your house does not mean it's going down right now.
Yeah. If I run to the hills every time I saw set up the slow rollers and one of them big helicopters with the twin props or whatever, or saw a formation of Blackhawks going by. If every time I saw something like that, I went and run into the hills, y'all would never hear me on here. I do hills.
You still have to be prepared, but live your life without fear.
Tanks or military vehicles down the tracks, though. I'm wondering about that.
Well, I see convoys about once every 2 months here because there's bases in Washington, and usually they're transporting stuff or training somewhere or moving around. Same with the Southwest and Texas. Everyone's talking about that stupid Jade Helm thing. That's a training exercise. We train with other militaries in the UN all the time. There's always big training exercises. And people are like, oh, they're putting tanks in the same place where they did Jade Helm. It means something's going on. No, it means that they're stationing tanks where they would normally station tanks. They're not just going to take over a different town and say, hey, we're taking over this town to store our stuff. They're going to use the same facility that they train on and they already store stuff on in the past.
Oh, yeah, and like the tanks that you see moving around and stuff, you got to think, okay, they take the tank out there, they beat the crap out of it. Then they put it back on the train, they take it back home and they fix it. And they take it and they beat the crap out of it again. Or, okay, these tanks and stuff are used, because it's usually not. I've never seen a Bradley fighting vehicle on a train, okay? I've seen things, I call them a tank. They're not really a tank. Okay, that one thing had a really cool gun on the front of it, but the gun wasn't actually there still. Just saying. But now I was made a little nervous the other day. There was a pack of Humvees going down the road, and they had the pew pew on top of the thing. I was like, why is the pew pew up there?
Oh, like PGF's video. PGF did a video when he was driving down the road. I think it's about maybe a year, maybe 2 years ago. He's driving down the road, and then some Humvees are going up. They've got mounted machine guns on the top of the roof, and there are, I think it's 2 black SUVs in between them, and they're going the other way.
That's just a VIP. Like if a politician visits a base or something, they get an escort. But in the States, if you see a helicopter or a Humvee or something driving around with a mounted gun on it, there's no ammunition in there.
Oh, man. I was going to pull more. I was going to have to shoot it.
It's a dog and pony show.
Yeah.
Because we're not allowed to arm up because we're not allowed to shoot citizens. And it's mainly a dog and pony show if they're doing an escort for someone or something, or they're doing training going from one training ground to another. They will have equipment mounted, but it won't be loaded.
All right.
Logistically, it makes sense to mount it. So I'm not going to argue too deep into it.
Well, yeah. What do you call this guy?
The guys
mounted or whatever. I mean, if you're escorting somebody, you can't stop on the. If you're attacked, you can stop to load your, take some time to load your gun, but you can't exactly stop and put the gun on there because that's something that takes a few minutes.
Oh, it's a big dog and pony show, is what it is.
Just for effect.
Yeah, I mean, unless something crazy goes down, we have to defend something. Whenever you have a VIP or there's an escort or you're practicing a mission with equipment, because you have to train. If we weren't allowed to mount anything or we weren't allowed to carry weapons or do anything like that ever, then nobody would actually get trained.
Yeah.
Which is one of the problems we had in the past with like the Korean War and Vietnam and some stuff in the 80s is because no one was ever really trained before they were deployed with equipment.
That's why they're still they want to keep they want to cut military spending so they can cut training. So, one world order doesn't want the rest of the world afraid of the United States military. Even if we are the best out there, personal opinion, don't get offended, but I'm saying, even though we do have the best military in the world, we could be better if we were trained. If we're not trained, we're not nearly as good. That's simple. That's why all the prepper channels out there, Have you practiced? Have you run drills? Have you gone out and started your own fire? Have you fired your weapon? Have you cleaned your weapon? Have you carried your pack? Have you practiced? Have you trained to do this? Training is super duper important.
Amy, there has been foreign troops here since World War One. They train all the time with our military and other militaries. It's not a conspiracy. Now, yes, the UN is an issue if they come in, but there are always foreign troops here. There's always foreign equipment here because we cross-train with our allies.
Yeah, there's like there's a bunch of now I can't remember their nationality or whatever down in San Angelo right now, duking it out or pretending to duke it out down there.
I mean, look at Westpac. Westpac's a very large public event, and we are training with a ridiculous amount of foreign militaries just about every year, every 2 years, I think. And there's just it's part of having a global presence. And
we had a big bird fly over the other day, and I don't know what it was, man. It was not a commercial aircraft, and it wasn't a B-1B, it wasn't a C-130, and it wasn't a 50.
there's too much of this. Oh, I saw because even the Russians do exercises with us. They have scheduled exercises they do. I mean, even people who you wouldn't think are allies, but sometimes we have to operate within certain parameters of each other in certain areas of the world. Even they still do stuff with us. We still do, like they do, they have some kind of nuclear agreement with the nuclear pact that they're allowed to fly over and check certain things out, because of the nuclear dearming stuff. And there's all kinds of weird stuff between the governments that they agreed on. And that every time you see something doesn't mean it's a conspiracy. When there's enough legitimate written policy to have other things that are going on, the other stuff is just fear mongering to not be focused on what's actual law.
I don't think we have. Are there Rush? Hey, Smolo, you still in here? I need you to go check on that Russian and North Korean and China bases.
But I mean, they used to train with Russians. There's also, because of the nuclear treaties that we have with Russia, they're allowed to look at our facilities. We're allowed to look at theirs, make sure we're not nuking each other. A lot of what you see in the news is just spooled up to cause more fear.
Yeah,
keep people distracted.
You cannot MSN.
Yeah, it keeps you distracted from what's actually being written in the law.
You can spot the weekend warriors around here. They got like each vehicle's a different camo. Even like the camo on the back of the truck will be the different color from the truck here. It's like, okay, guys, y'all need to get your stuff together.
You mean National Guard?
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
I'm more worried about actual policy, like continuity of government that was passed in the middle of the night behind closed doors.
Yeah, that's the one guy that was giving the speech on the changing the laws and stuff, and there was nobody in the room. The camera panned around, and there was nobody there. And I'm like, okay, who's gonna vote on this? There's nobody there. And the guys, whenever you catch them doing that, the guys are always in the same voice. And if we are able to pass this legislation, then we will be able to do this. And I really need your support. And thank you for voting the right way. It's like, oh, gosh, he hates his job. But he has to stand up there and give the spiel. And then when his time's up, the next guy will go up there and give the spiel to the empty seats. And everybody gives the spiel to the empty seats. And then they all vote because blah, and then we wound up with a new law, and it wasn't really what it was supposed to be. And
We're not
The only
seeing.
time there's people there debating and arguing it was when it's something that the people actually want to have happen. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't blame you. I feel uneasy about them too. You can't always. I mean, you can't trust someone fully from a foreign military.
Yeah, it's like me. I don't trust the Canadian Army.
But they're not just giving them. They're not just showing them. They're very controlled on how they move about bases and how they move about facilities. So a lot of that is just crazy nonsense.
Y'all people in the chat, don't pay any attention to Mrs. West. She's completely wrong. You should live in fear, grovel in the corner, and hide from the boogeyman all the time. And send me $20.
But a lot of people, I think, like Alex Jones. I don't agree with what Alex Jones says, and I honestly think that he was a front just to get people spooled up and to get people fear mongering.
He made his money fear mongering. That's just all there is to it. He's good at it, but he's gonna blow a gasket.
Yeah. All you gotta do is mix about 10% of truth in it, so it sounds good, and people start believing you. That's true, HTP.
Yep. I mean, you've got, let's say you've got 100 trained military personnel, and the officers know who's who, and they ask the ones that they think will do what they need to do to volunteer. And then they say, okay, we will do this because we think it's for the country. And then, if they need more, then they just tell them, hey, you do realize that we have this number of people that are backing it up. Do you really want your family to be on the wrong side of the fence from the military? And then they wind up with more people. That's the only thing I'm scared of. And that's why we need to. Awareness is good. I watch a channel called Edge of Wonder because they don't fearmonger stuff. They just put it out there. You know what I'm saying? They don't go all deep end on it. Well, maybe a little deep on the Sasquatch thing, but because they do things on QAnon and all kinds of things. They're I like the channel anyway. We need to be aware. Just being aware something is going on and putting it out there. It's hard for a shadow to sneak up behind you if there's light behind you. You know what I'm saying? If you can see what's coming, it can't sneak up on you.
That was the next point I was going to make. Eyes wide open. That there is a standing order. You learn what an unjust order or what a lawful order is, what a lawful order isn't, and you swear an oath to the Constitution. And there is a standing order that you will not follow an unlawful order.
Frank, yeah, they have a Canadian Army. It's like 3 guys, and they have slingshots, I think.
And a moose.
I'm just messing with you Canadians. I think Prepper Madness left or whatever.
I think he was in the Canadian Army.
Pretty bad, but man, they're not. If they had to fight, I think they could do a pretty good job. Have y'all seen that movie about the UN guys that got trapped over there with no support or whatever? And was that the Sudan or something? Not this.
Oh, that one on Netflix?
Yeah, that was a good movie, man.
That's a damn good movie, and unfortunately that's what happens with the UN. those guys got screwed so bad when they came back. They were branded as traitors and everything else.
I like it when he says, "Hey, you see that guy over there by the house?" Because yeah, he says, "Can you shoot him?" Yeah, I'm gonna need such and such. They bring him this big old gun. That was a big old gun. I don't even know what it was.
Yeah, they scoped a big old Brin.
And, he's like, he calls back. He says, "Do you have him?" He says, "Do you have his heart?" He says, "Yep, take it." The guy just crumples, man. I was like, "Oh, that was pretty good right there."
I believe the Gold Beach invasion was mostly Canadian Allies LS.
Yeah, Canada was in, and people don't even realize that Canada was in World War II. Australia fought in both the big world wars, didn't they?
Yeah, Australia is actually one of our best allies. They Australia and New Zealand, they really sacrificed a lot for us in World War II and Vietnam. I like Australians. I worked with them. They're good people.
I mean, what's the real difference between Canada and the USA? I was joking. If you're from Minnesota, there's not a lot of difference than you in Canada. And what is it? Up? What do they call the top part of Michigan? The part that's on the other side of the lake? What's it called?
Upper Oopers?
Upper Michigan. Isn't that like, don't they say A too?
Yeah, Youpers.
I'm pretty sure if you got up in the very tip of Idaho, they'd probably say A. Well, I don't know. The part of Canada over there closest to Alaska and all that, I don't know if they say A over there or not.
I got a lot of family in northern Idaho. They're all rednecks.
Man, I watch the Woodbeard and all them, the Wooded Beardsman and what is it, One Wildcrafter. Man, it's just two rednecks, man. They just live in Canada.
Yeah. Canada, like outside of the cities, Canada's full of rednecks. A lot of good people up there. I don't like the city Canadians. They're freaking weird. It's like the Twilight Zone when you go up there. Everything's like the same but like slightly different. It's like you're in a different dimension. It's weird.
I was like, ooh, I took the wrong pill this morning. What happened? The only thing I don't like about, I mean, Canada's really, really close to us. Like, there's like this little imaginary line thing there. And they're like really drifting socialism really fast. So they're getting pretty bad about it. But, ladies and gentlemen, before we get off on something else, the Red Green Show. Yes, the Red Green Show was awesome. 7, 8, 9, 10. That's 3.5 hours, folks. Close enough. Gentlemen, y'all have anything to say to the people?
Thanks for coming in and listening to us ramble.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Let's finish waffle on for a bit.
There will be an after show tomorrow night. Come in early, and you can actually go to Step 1 Survival. He has a really good show on Saturday nights. I will be there, and then shortly after, we have a little thing called the after show. For those of you that don't know, usually starts about 8:30, 8:45 my time, which is Central Mountain or Central Standard or whatever. I don't know where I'm at. Texas time. It start about 8:30, 8:45, depending on what time they get off. And usually we just continue what we were talking about in the other chat. So you're welcome to come by and say hi and all that stuff. God bless y'all. I want y'all all to stay alive and don't die. So y'all do that for me, okay? Food. Put up food, water, food, water, food and water, food and water, food and water, food and water. Yeah, Tripper can do the after show. No, I am not. To get a record, I've got to go past 4.5 hours, Chip. That's not going to happen. So, anyway, love all y'all. God bless y'all. Y'all still alive, don't die.
See you later, guys. Take care.